For today. Thank you for all the public comment. We have received a lot through our emails. We appreciate that. And then during the presentation today, we don't clap or cheer. You're welcome to do this or raise your signs, but we don't really want to discourage anybody from saying what they want to. Everybody gets that right, whether it's for or against the project, so we don't want to make anybody feel not welcome. So with that, and John muting. Zoom has a way. Kaylee, can we start with roll call?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Supervisor Bohn.
Go Panthers.
Supervisor Arroyo. Here. Supervisor Wilson.
Present.
Supervisor Madrone.
Present.
Chair Bushnell.
Good morning again.
All are here.
Okay, let's salute our flag, please. Okay, well, this is our special meeting of Monday, October 20th, and we have one agenda item today. And before we get to that agenda item, we are going to see if there's any modifications to the agenda.
Good morning, Chair Bushnell. There are no modifications today.
Okay, thank you, CAO Hayes. And then we are going to go to our county council.
Thank you, Chair Bushnell. Currently before the board is an ordinance amending section 311-7 of the Humboldt County Code by rezoning property in the McKinleyville area to mixed use and adding the McKinleyville Town Center Q qualified combining zone.
Okay, so I am going to open the public hearing, and we are going to go to Director Ford to start.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Bushnell and members of the Board of Supervisors. John Ford with the Planning and Building Department. Before I begin the presentation, I just want to give a little bit of a procedural discussion about public comment. So all the public comment that was received before October 15th was forwarded to the board with the board report that was published. Anything after that was presented through the clerk of the board's office and is attached to the Legistar file and is there. And there were some subsequent comments that were received, and those you have on the dais this morning. So with that, I'm going to give a short, what I hope will be somewhat short presentation on the town center. And
John, if I could interrupt, I'm sorry, I forgot to say one thing. So we, public comment is 2 minutes today, not 3, and that'll be for everyone. I really, just if you have something to say, please do, but it can get a little bit, you're welcome to say, I agree, disagree, and you don't have to utilize the 2 minutes, so just want to put it out there. So thank you.
And my computer is killing me this morning. It will not go into display mode. So I pardon me that this is going to be in the work mode. But this is a presentation on the McKinleyville Town Center. The things that I'll go over briefly are the development of the ordinance, the Town Center ordinance itself, the IR, the issues that seem to be of most concern to the public, and then discuss the recommendation. First, I want to start by saying this is a process that started in 2019. The McKinleyville Municipal Advisory Committee is created to collect information that's important to the community and provide recommendations to the Board of Supervisors. So these are the current and past members and past chairs of the McKinleyville Municipal Advisory Committee, and they've worked tirelessly to bring this to this point. And there are members of the public too, and I was afraid that I'd miss somebody, so I didn't try to name all the members of the public that participated in this, but there have been people who have been there every step of the way, and that is so appreciated. So the McKinleyville Town Center comes out of the McKinleyville Community Plan to establish unique identity for McKinleyville. It needs to be viable, a focal point for the community where social community interaction can be conducted, and it's identified as an area of mixed land uses with an encouragement for bicycle pedestrian travel and also convenient automobile access. Some of the topics that were discussed in great detail were how to address wetlands. It started off wondering whether or not the definition of wetlands should be modified within the community plan. That was ultimately decided by the MICMAC that they would not make the recommendation to do that, that the town center also would be subject to the single parameter wetland requirement. Really spent a lot of time developing a pedestrian network. So there is a complete pedestrian connectivity, both east-west from McKinleyville Avenue all the way over to Pearson Park, and there is a connection proposed linking the Midtown Trail, and also pedestrian connectivity along Central. So the zoning the concept went from having individual zones to zoning the entire town center as mixed use, and I'll show you maps of that in a moment, with specific an overlay zone addressing how to deal with that. The building design is a form-based code, and that was something that was done to try to create more of an urban downtown feel with commercial uses on the first floor, residential above that. And then the road design, I know, is going to be the big discussion today, which was how to address Central Avenue. There are policies within the McKinleyville Community Plan to address pedestrians on and crossing Central. And so the ultimate, what's being called the road diet, is a function that came out of that. So this is the area that's identified within the McKinleyville Community Plan as being the town center. And what is being proposed is there's one project that's actually proposed. That's the Life Plan Humboldt project. That's the area that's outlined in purple south of Hiller. So the proposal is to zone basically the entire property mixed use. And so there would be one common zone throughout the entire town center, and that would be mixed use, and that would be modified by a Q zone. And the Q zone would have uses that are broken up like this. There'd be a 14-acre wetland on the western end of the property that is described for wetland conservation, preservation, recreation. Part of that will be to retain half of the spruce grove that exists there. So there's a little bit of flexibility with respect to the where that goes, but the idea is to retain the spruce grove that exists there, because that is kind of an identifying landmark on the landscape. You'll notice that the public facility, which is also encouraged within the community plan, is retained for Pearson Park. That also includes the library, Azalea Hall, the sheriff's substation, and the community center. The R3 seems a little out of place, but what the reason for that is that that's where the Thunderbird Trailer Park is, and there was a desire not to create the trailer park as being a non-conforming use. So the R3 zoning basically is retained for that location. An EIR was prepared to evaluate the impacts of implementing the town center, and that would be looking forward to actual construction, because the objective here is to have the actual construction of buildings to be ministerial. There may be a need for discretionary permits, such as related to obtaining permits to relocate wetlands. So the EIR is both programmatic, but also provides environmental site clearance for future development. And it also clearly would include Life Plant Humboldt. In the EIR, there were impacts that were identified as being there was no impact or less than significant impact without mitigation. Those are shown in white. There's less than significant after mitigation is provided. Those are shown in yellow. And there was one significant unavoidable impact, and that was related to the traffic noise along Railroad Drive. The concern there, it wasn't that it exceeded 60 dB, which is the normal general plan level of allowable. It's that it increased the overall noise by more than 5 decibels, up to 7 decibels. And so due to the fact that the road is already a low-speed road, there wasn't really, and the homes on the north side of Railroad face onto the street, there wasn't really the ability to provide sound attenuation there. And so it was deemed to be a significant unavoidable impact with no feasible mitigation. One of the interesting things that often confuses people, we're in a era of the California Environmental Quality Act where we no longer evaluate level of service. It's now based upon vehicle miles traveled. And since the project is so focused on pedestrian, bicycle, and transit, that it really is a self-mitigating project, and the impact was determined to be less than significant. The Central Avenue lane reduction had no CEQA impact. There was, and I'll talk about this a little bit more later, there was an operational analysis that was done for the project that was separate from VMT, and that is also included as an appendix to the EIR. So we did examine a couple of alternatives. One is the no project alternative. That always has to be evaluated, and then a reduced scale project. One of the things that is a concern for some people is the amount of development that could be allowed, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about that. But what the EIR did was evaluated the theoretical maximum that could be developed, so that whatever happens out there would not exceed that. And so that's not those aren't regulatory numbers. The MCMAC recommended going with the project as proposed rather than trying to reduce it, primarily because there is a need for housing within the community and within Humboldt County. The EIR, the draft we received 28 letters. Most of them came from individuals who commented on the document. There was one letter from a state agency, one from a local agency, one from a non-governmental organization. And so the final EIR includes the DEIR. It includes the changes that were made to the DEIR in responding to the comments, and then response to comments. We did include some master responses because many of the comments were not related to the EIR, but were really focusing on ordinance requirements. And so just wanted to explain why that's not something that the EIR is going to respond to. I do want to say that some of the comments did result in changes to the EIR, and we included those here. One was just including an updated cross-section of Central. It was described in the DEIR, but we updated that with a new exhibit. We modified the air quality mitigation. We also modified some of the biological resource mitigation, primarily to address the concerns from Department of Fish and Wildlife, and then try to address the noise a little bit more thoroughly by adding a construction noise coordinator, and then including the alternatives in table for the reduced project alternative. So some of the areas of concern that you've seen relate to wetlands, relate to Central Avenue, relate to the amount of development analyzed, and to open space. I'm going to go through those briefly. The first one is related to wetlands and the concern with policies 14 and 15 within the community plan. And that policy says on existing parcels, development within wetland areas shall be permitted. And one of the things that you will see is that there are actually 5 existing undeveloped parcels that these policies would apply to. And 4 of those are existing parcels that have not been changed since before the community plan. So that would clearly be under policy 14, which allows impacts to wetlands provided they are mitigated and addressed. Policy 15 then is the one that becomes a concern, and this is the Life Plan Humboldt parcel. It says no land use or development shall be permitted in wetland areas which degrade the wetland or detract from natural resource value on newly created parcels. So the Life Plan Humboldt parcel was subdivided since the adoption of the community plan. So it is clearly subject to policy 15. And one of the things I want to point out, and the reason I put this in different colors, is that if it said no land use or development shall be permitted in wetland areas on newly created parcels, that would be it. That would be very clear. But it doesn't say that. It provides a modifier in there which degrade the wetland or detract from the natural value. In the staff report and in the findings, there is a great amount of analysis describing why what Life Plan Humboldt is proposing is consistent with that. So I probably just went through this too fast, so I'll just skip over that. So one of the other area of concern is the amount of development that's allowed, and it evaluated the possibility of 2,650 units at 25 dwelling units per acre. It evaluated 106 acres. The total town center is 134 acres, so obviously Pearson Park was subtracted out, the public facilities were subtracted out. But that basically leaves 54 acres undeveloped, which would be about 1,350 units. Life Plan Humboldt is already developing, proposed to develop, and they are at 144 units. If they developed at 25 units per acre, they would have 211 units. The area up on Pickett, where it says 4.3 acres up there in kind of the buff color, that was a recent, or more recent modification that the MCMAC made a recommendation on. The property owner there wanted to do something around 10 units to the acre. So what's being proposed there is about 43 units. At 25 units per acre, it'd be about 64. So you can see the EIR was very, very conservative in the analysis. It probably won't ever reach the 2,650 units, and in order to do that, areas within the town center would need to be redeveloped. There would be the existing development that would need to be redone and redeveloped under the town center ordinance. So another concern was relative to open space, and the ordinance requires 3% of undeveloped property to be devoted to some sort of open space, with a minimum of one site being at least 20,000 square feet. And the open space can be combined into one area, or it can be spread across the properties. And so the 54 undeveloped acres would be about 1.62 acres. The MCMAC in the last meeting that they held was somewhat split. Some were open to the idea of looking for more than 20,000 square feet. Others thought that the 1.62 acres is really what dictates here, and they were fine with the language as it is. So I'm not going to read all this to you. The other concern is relative to parkland, and the way that parkland is currently addressed within McKinleyville is that there's an option to either dedicate or to pay a park fee, and then the park fee is usually provided to the McKinleyville Community Services District, and they develop parks using that fee. We recently had the board approve a request to transfer money to MCSD for the BMX park, And so that's what's in red down there. It's or pay a park fee for a public park sufficient to achieve the above standards. So the development of the town center will be consistent with current practice and consistent with what is allowed not only in the policies of the community plan itself, but also in what's called the Quimby Act. And then there was a comment about traditional village form, and there is a reference to that. These are the actual language from the guidelines. Create a building siding to assure a traditional village form to avoid the standard strip shopping center look. And so which is the driving focus here? Is it trying to define what a traditional village is, or is it to stay away from the standard strip shopping center look? And that's really what the objective of the Q zone, the town center ordinance, is intended to do, is create a very walkable, pedestrian-oriented feel, similar to what a traditional development would look like in a state where you didn't have the tradition or the more recent strip design with parking in the front and buildings behind the parking lot. The big area of concern is, as you're aware, you have a stack of comments, no road diet. And so this is what the McKinleyville Municipal Advisory Committee ultimately recommended approval of. And this would be 3 lanes. There would be a north lane, south lane, and a center turn lane. There would be a buffered bike lane, and then there would be the pedestrian sidewalk adjacent to the buildings. One of the things that I think is important to understand about this drawing that is accurately presented is that the form-based code looks to place buildings right at the back of the walk so that you have more of a town center kind of feel. So you have shop fronts with residences up above. Originally there was a tree where the little red planter is there. There was originally a landscape strip there. The MCMAC realized that because there is utilities in this area, there would not be good to place landscaping there that would conflict with MCSD. And so they took that out and just placed, they wanted to see that some kind of rock or gravel, some kind of decorative pavement treatment, still keeping the curb, still keeping the buffered bicycle lane, but with the possibility, if allowed, to place some kind of planter in that area. And so that's what's reflected there. Obviously, the current configuration of the road is 4 lanes, and I want to clarify something because I heard a lot of read a lot of comments about the thinking that the entirety of McKinleyville Avenue would be converted to 2 lanes. So this is a drawing. I'm sorry for the scale. I couldn't get it any larger and have it all fit on a slide. But the area in orange is showing the existing 2-lane segments of McKinleyville Avenue.
Are you referring to Central Avenue, John?
Or Central, thank you. Thank you. McKinleyville Avenue is to the west. The green area is area that will remain 4 lanes. The blue area is the area that would be where the lane reduction is, and that would be between Railroad Avenue and Hartwood. And while I do not have empirical numbers to demonstrate this, I do drive this enough to know that when you come off the freeway and go up over Bella Vista Hill and come down and hit the 4-lane segment, that before you even go through the light at the shopping center, a lot of people are already getting in that right lane because the big turning movement is at the Sutter Road intersection. And Sutter Road that intersection will not be affected by this. In fact, just personal experience, I was in the Chevron station at Sutter and Central on Saturday and was looking to make a left onto Sutter to get back on Central. And there were 9 cars stacked in the turning lane So the primary turning movement is on and off of Sutter there. There's a lot of traffic that goes out Sutter. There's a lot of development that goes out there that way. The 4-lane section would then end at Hartwood, which is also another place where there is a lot of traffic that turns off onto Hartwood before getting into the upper section there between Hartwood and Railroad. So I hope that helps a little bit for context. It's not all of the 4-lane section that would be affected. Also wanted to say that the Planning Commission was kind of vexed by what to do about this. They were concerned. They don't want to see traffic jams. They don't want to see the community put into place with a traffic solution that nobody likes. So they asked for additional study to be done. And that's part of the recommendation today. But I do want to point out that one of the things the MCMAC asked for and was provided is that there was a operational analysis done for all the intersections around the town center. So that evaluated Murray and Central. It identified and evaluated Murray and McKinleyville. It identified the intersections down along McKinleyville and down along Central to Hartwood. And so it did find that there would be impacts to those intersections. And it did also provide what the solutions, the improvements that could be made to those intersections to maintain an adequate level of service there. It did not address, though, intersections that were outside the study area. So it didn't address how many turns are being made on and off Central at School Road. And it also did not involve something that's a kind of a new topic of discussion that really wasn't a topic of discussion when this process started, which is the possibility of having a Hiller Road interchange. Caltrans is currently looking at Hiller Road to put an on-ramp and off-ramp, northbound, southbound, from Hiller onto 101. These options were provided to the MCMAC. They're also provided to the Planning Commission. And these come out of the McKinleyville modality study. And the one in the upper right was an alternative that maintained basically the 5-lane alignment, 4 lanes north, 4 lanes south with a center turn lane. It maintained on-street bike paths and a 10-foot bike pedestrian path that's separated from the street on the west side of the road. One of the things that the MCMAC made comment about, I don't know that this was unanimous, but they were concerned that the existing bridle trail there really may be incompatible with the form-based code desire to have wide sidewalks and the retail on the first floor. So that was that was rejected. But it was brought up in at least one of the letters as an alternative to the current road diet proposal. The other lane reduction was really not so much a pavement reduction. This one also included the bridle trail, which the MCMAC commented on, same concept, but it is now a 3-lane alternative, 1 north, 1 south, and a center turn lane with a buffered bike lane on each side. So that even the modality study did not recommend approval of that. So the recommendation to the Board of Supervisors is to adopt the resolution to certify the EIR and adopt the findings of overriding consideration, adopt the mitigation monitoring reporting program, adopt the resolution to make all required findings for adoption of a zoning ordinance, and then adopt the ordinance to rezone the town center mixed use with a Q zone overlay, and direct that any work done with Central Avenue be done with an updated traffic analysis and design to be presented to the MCMAC for public discussion. With that, I am happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you. From the board, we're going to do clarifying questions only, and then I'm going to go to public comment. And then I'll go back to John and then back to the board. So any clarifying questions on the presentation? Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank you. Something I didn't see as part of the presentation was, and I'm a bit familiar, but I could always use more information about this, about what the public process has been that surrounded all of this.
Thank you. So we started off trying to decide what would be an appropriate committee. Initially, the MCMAC was thinking about appointing people, but then it would still need to come back to the MCMAC for consideration and their recommendation. And so the recommendation was made to the MCMAC, which they agreed to, is that they serve as that committee to serve as the place where public meetings would be held, where public input would be taken, and where public discussion would be had. The first couple meetings were meetings that were really not convened as the MCMAC. They were much larger. We set up tables. First, we did an introduction and an overview in the Azalea Hall, and had maybe 75 people there. Then we conducted a meeting that we broke out into tables where people in the first meeting had identified the areas that they'd like to study and talk about. And so we set those and let people go around the tables and talk about what it was that they wanted to see. From there, we kind of got a little bit sidetracked, frankly, on talking about wetlands. And that discussion was the focus for a few meetings. And we then got into COVID and slowed down a little bit and started holding remote meetings, Zoom meetings. And during that time, people started asking, what does this look like? What would the town center look like? And we actually hired a great architect to come in and help us give presentations and develop kind of something representative of what form-based code could look like. And Cash Buja came and helped us with that and did a blocking study and a massing study. And he even did some things that, you could see it from different angles. And that, I think, helped the public and helped the MCMAC understand what it was that was being proposed. We got into discussions. The discussion of Central Avenue has been up and down and back and forth the entire time. And so one of the things I want to point out that I think some people in the public were dissatisfied with was that the normal allowance for 3 minutes to speak during a meeting. And so I think some people really wanted to have more back and forth, but in order to maintain some sense of order, that wasn't allowed for. Went through all the items that I put up there on the screen, and ordinance was written. And then we probably spent, I want to say 2 years, going through iterations of that ordinance, staff responding to comments, including something within the document, having the public comment it, having the MCMAC comment on it, and then kind of going through it until we got a finished document. We got a stable document, and then based upon that, we prepared the draft EIR. And then coming out of the draft EIR, some subtle changes were made, but nothing that was really significant. And then we took both the final EIR with the draft EIR and the final version of the document back to the MCMAC for their recommendation to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission received the recommendation of the MCMAC, and they considered the public testimony, considered what was presented, and made the recommendation to the board to adopt the ordinance, certify the EIR with no changes.
Thank you. So it's been it's about 6 years now? Okay, thank you.
Any other clarifying questions? Supervisor Wilson, then Supervisor Madrone, and then Supervisor Bohn.
This kind of goes into the Q zone part of this discussion, which is I read in there that there's sort of the encouragement of the shared parking as well as kind of moving away from the parking frontage to a more town-style frontage. And I just kind of wonder, how does that manifest, from the words that are on paper and what we may or may not move forward today?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think that's part of the concern for many members of the community as well. But when somebody would come in with an application for a permit, if they didn't require any discretionary permit, then the town center and the form-based code would be used to evaluate the design of the project, not only the site plan, but also the buildings.
It seems like that there either hasn't been encouragement of that in the past, and maybe even just a different vision of how that looks and what that is. And so, so what you're saying is that basically that encouragement occurs in the design phase of a new project, and that there's now direction to move away from what is the standard, which is big parking lots in the front and businesses in the back.
Right. This is very much intended to do things at a human pedestrian scale.
Yeah. Okay. Appreciate that. I probably have a few other clarifying questions, but I'll wait for after public comment. Thanks.
Supervisor Madrone?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, John, I think some of the other issues had to do with density, building height, and of course the wetlands, as you mentioned, were discussed all the way through the 6-year process over and over. Is it true that the proposed zoning that we're considering here today actually reduces density from existing zoning?
That is true.
Is it also true that it reduces building height from the existing zoning that exists today?
That is also true.
Those seem to be pretty significant to me, and I think they've been lost a lot in the discussion that we've had, but I think it's important to recognize that it actually reduces these things compared to the existing zoning. On the wetlands, would you say, from your professional opinion, that most of the existing wetlands out there that are little pockets here, there are mostly degraded wetlands? There are some high-quality ones on the site, but mostly they're degraded, and they will be replaced at a 1.5 to 1 ratio into a high-quality wetlands complex. Would you say that that's also true?
That is true, and part of that, I'm not going to claim to be a wetlands biologist,
Understood.
but we did walk the site with a wetlands biologist and with a scientist from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. The MCMAC went out there on that trip. I believe you were there on that trip. I believe members of the public were there on that trip. And so the biologist did point out where there were higher quality wetlands and where there were lower quality wetlands. And that really is what started the discussion around the 14-acre set-aside. That was based upon that trip and having that discussion out in the field.
Great, thank you for that. I mean, I think, there's been a lot of misconceptions about the wetlands issue in the media, in social media, et cetera, where a lot of comments have been made that we're going to destroy and fill all the wetlands. As my understanding, that the proposal would fill some wetlands, but that they are to be replaced at a 1.5 to 1 ratio. So there will actually be more wetlands than exist now in terms of acreage, and they would be all concentrated into what I consider, as a wetlands expert, very high quality wetlands complex in the western third of the developable area. And furthermore, along Hiller Road and McKinleyville Avenue, there's big ditches that have a live stream literally running in it year-round down to the corner of Railroad and McKinleyville Avenue, which then makes its way out to Hiller Park, under the freeway, et cetera. And that the proposal is to actually pull that stream out of the ditches and run it through the wetlands complex, which also adds tremendous value to that wetland complex in terms of habitat value, functionality, and all that. And that also would provide an opportunity along McKinleyville Avenue to then fill that existing ditch, because the drainage would be rerouted through the complex. And by filling that ditch, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, and bike routes could be added to McKinleyville Avenue. to complete what is the only missing section of sidewalk on all of McKinleyville Avenue in that reach. So that also seems to me to be a very positive aspect of this, just to clarify.
All that is true.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, before we go to Supervisor Madrone, I want to remind, or Bohn, I'm sorry.
Yes, totally. Two peas in a pod.
You heard it on recording. So I want to remind people on Zoom that we're going to be going to public comment and that the Zoom, as you're listening, is a little bit delayed. So listen into your device, which will be your phone, for the prompt from Kaylee to unmute you. Do not listen to your TV or wherever you're streaming it. Please turn that off. And so we're going to go to Supervisor Bohn for a clarifying question to Director Ford.
I will never claim to be an expert on anything because it's obvious. Baseball. Actually, I was on the committee to build Hiller Park for 5 years. So, and that's been open how many years and been very successful. And I remember that's when the town center started, is when they sold the property from the old McKinleyville Park. And Grandma Sullivan, sorry. Do we get, now I saw park fees. Is that Quinby fees?
Yes.
And is that going to be per unit?
Yes.
So that will be quite substantial.
Yes.
Okay. The noise mitigation, I know is 2 decibels, and we're saying 2 decibels isn't very much, but I remember on a lot of other ordinances, a lot of cannabis, a lot of everything else, 1 decibel was the end of the world. So
Well, that's why it's a significant
Yeah.
impact. Yeah.
and we don't we usually use significant impacts as a weapon, and you're not use them as a weapon this time. And I'm not against the life plant Humboldt. I do like that it's 2,200. It could be 2,200 units, but I did notice that at the end, another developer is actually going to put 60 units of workforce or low-income housing. Is that the way I understand it?
About 43 units of workforce housing, yes.
Okay. And I know this has been going on for a while. I look and I'll bring it up. We're fighting the McKay track for bike racks and everything else, and that's 325 units that started out as 327 single-family homes is now 125 and 180 multi-use. So do you really, and put it realistic, talking to Caltrans, is the Hiller Road interchange a possibility, considering that there is already a pretty good, significant amount of interchanges already? Do you think Caltrans, because it looks like it's pretty narrow to put one in there without a lot of, I think it takes out a soccer field, but anyway.
I don't know that they're looking at the north side. I think it's only north off and south on.
Okay.
And I can't comment on what the likelihood of it is. It's still in the beginning phases of discussion. I think there's
Do they roll
some
their eyes or
excitement
clap
about
their
it, but-
hands? I'm just wondering. I mean, so anyway, I don't know how positive it is, so obviously I'm not an expert. And then are we commenting on the road?
Sure.
I'm gonna go to public comment because I've got so many offline phone calls because I spend a lot of time in McKinleyville and have a lot of friends up there, and I've talked to a lot of the businesses in the green section or whatever the case may be. The business community up there doesn't seem to be relishing it quite as much because and I don't know how time flies now, but it hasn't been that long ago because I remember the green pavement. That was I think that was the first place we used green pavement for bike things, and that doesn't seem that long ago. And a lot of the input was by, in my term, since I've been here 71 years, is brought up by a new organization that's got a lot of input into the traffic. And do we have a full-blown traffic study on this? Because I think the Planning Commission suggested that we have a full-blown traffic study.
Yeah, yes, we do.
Okay, so the Planning Commission was asking for something we already had?
I'm not sure how much they were aware of. In fairness,
I'd hope they'd be aware of a lot of it.
Yeah, that's, the MCMAC, I want to be fair here. The MCMAC recognized that the operational analysis would not be part of the CEQA analysis. But before they were willing to make a recommendation on the overall town center, wanted to know what the impacts of the road diet were. So we did that as part of the EIR. And so we provided that. They reviewed that. The little table I put up there is the table of the summary of the impacts on the intersections. And so for the project area intersections, that's absolutely addressed. I think what they're looking for, and interpreting some of the comments that were made at the Planning Commission, is more of a systemic McKinleyville-wide approach to traffic. And that wasn't the purpose of that study. But I'm not sure that you do something like that unless you're thinking traffic fees.
Okay, because and this doesn't mean to be any detriment to anything else, but we did a big bicycle lane or whatever on H&I Street, which was a pretty major aspect, and I don't know what the results are, but I live in Cutton. I travel that 2 to 3 times a day, and I have counted a total of 17 bikes. Now, this is just me when I drive it, because I keep tracking my pickup. 17 bikes total. 11 on the sidewalks, and J Street still gets a lot more traffic, because everybody tells me, why would you go on H&I when you go down J Street with wide lanes and everything else? So I don't know if we can consider that a success. I mean, one side will say one side, I hate sides, but at one side, I don't see the success. But my issue is, I'm afraid for the McKinleyville residents that we're going to have another experiment that at the end goes, well, that didn't work.
I'm sorry, do you have a clarifying question, or can we go to public comment and come back?
Yeah, I do. Do you think this is the best possible route, the road diet, or is it a lot of speculation?
So, in short, I'll say I think this is been given a lot of thought. I think that it has tremendous upside for the community. I've been a planner for more years than I feel comfortable saying. And as long as I have been a planner, this has been a discussion in terms of moving away from the traditional, 4-lane, high-speed arterial to slowing traffic down and creating a more pedestrian scale for business and for people who live and work there. The communities that have done that have found their businesses are actually more successful because people aren't just driving through very fast. They're now going there, they're stopping, they're staying. While they're staying, they're spending money. And so many communities are making that switch. And so this was something to try to get ahead of a town that has really grown up as started as maybe a wide spot in the road and now wants to see a town center. And so how do you begin to create a place that is an attraction point that people want to come and be?
And with that, with these improvements that the town center brings, will there be, I got one other question after this, will there be any financial involvement by them like we ask of other developments, all the way through to even wedding venues? We want them to make all the improvements to the road. Is there going to be any financial investment in there? And then the only other thing I ask is 54 years ago, I remember a gal invited me to go horseback riding with her. And I said, oh yeah, I ride horses all the time. I lied. And I remember running full blast, hanging onto the house down the middle of Central Avenue. And I remember we'd just gone by the side and where horses had the right of way, and I was praying to God people believed in that. But is there still an equestrian trail to the east of Central that's 20 foot wide? I've heard 20 foot wide, that would be accessible to use completely separated from traffic, completely safe, and then the people could use the arterials to come on. And I don't know, I've been on it, but that, like I said, that was a long time ago, so.
I'm not aware of that. I'm going to address that first, and then I'll get back to your question on finances. I know that there is still a bridle trail. There is crushed granite, meandering path that's on the outside of the sidewalk that goes up Central. I've seen one horse on it in all the time I've been in McKinleyville. In fairness, I am a resident there.
Should have been there 54 years ago.
Yeah. In terms of the finances, the town center ordinance is very clear that development of Central Avenue is not the responsibility of the property owners along Central Avenue. It needs to be done with alternative financing.
Thanks, John.
So there are plenty of seats I see open. If people standing want to take a seat, you're welcome to stand. I just want to just remind everybody that you can. It'll probably be a long day of public comment. So if you feel comfortable trying to find a seat, that would be okay. And then we have a couple more clarifying questions from board members, and we're going to go to Supervisor Wilson and then to Supervisor Madrone. I want to remind Zoom again that public comment will come to Zoom first, and then we're going to have folks line up in the room to make their public comment here in the room. So Supervisor Wilson, clarifying only, please.
Yeah, this has to do with that's the question from Supervisor Madrone around the housing density. And if there's an overall reduction in housing density, I was just wondering how that impacts our arena analysis and so.
Yeah, I think
For anyone who doesn't know, that's regional housing needs allocation.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you for asking that. That was something we struggled with because we're not allowed to take away the potential to build housing. And what the justification given is that by doing this on a comprehensive scale and addressing the whole area and addressing it with an environmental analysis, it actually makes development of housing easier. So while the potential is still higher, the actual ability is lower for people to come in and do it because they don't have a plan, they don't have an EIR, and they don't have the clear path forward.
And just clarifying, and so HUD thinks that's a reasonable analysis, or?
We haven't been challenged on that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Supervisor Madrone?
Thank you, Chair. So on the Hiller Road thing, I wanted to offer some clarification. I was contacted by Caltrans about 4 months ago because they're preparing to do some earthquake retrofit work on Hiller's overpass over Highway 101. And it dawned on me through the 6 years of process on the town center ordinance that if we could have a southbound on-ramp and a northbound off-ramp at Hiller Road, it would be a game changer for McKinleyville to have that access right there in the middle of the community and directly off Hiller where the town center is proposed to be built. So in that retrofit consideration meeting, I brought that to Caltrans. Tom Madsen, our Public Works Director, was there, as well as representatives from the CSD who have a pipeline that actually hangs off of that bridge crossing over. And the CSD was assured that there would be no impacts to their pipeline, which was good to hear. And Caltrans was actually extremely excited. The staff there said, wow, that's a really great idea. The reason there aren't ramps right there is because it's too close to the school road interchange in terms of there has to be a 1 mile separation in terms of design parameters for Caltrans. But just like for the Trinidad Rancheria's proposed interchange up in Trinidad, which is way closer than 1 mile to the Trinidad interchange, Hiller could get an exemption, just like the one in Trinidad. And so they are adding it to their list to consider and look at design parameters, flow parameters, circulation parameters. And so I just wanted to share with the community that Caltrans felt that that was really a very good suggestion and that it would absolutely be doable, just like the interchange in Trinidad has become doable. So I just wanted to clarify that because, again, Having that on and off ramp right there in the middle of the town would be incredible. And it can be done without taking any land. It would be a little more expensive to do bridge-like off-ramp, on-ramp, rather than more of the at-grade type of sweeping ramps. But it is totally feasible without even taking private property. So that was very important to me. And so I just wanted to share that is the discussion that we had with Caltrans. So, thank you.
Supervisor Bohn.
And I agree with them. That would be the extreme game changer and take a lot of that traffic off. So maybe as we're looking at this, we should get more of a commitment from Caltrans to be actually doing this, because they're looking at a roundabout at Elk River. They're looking at a lot of things. They look at a lot of things, but actually, instituting the ideas into actualities. And if Hiller Park, if Hiller Road does get those off ramps, it does make a big difference. And maybe we don't need the road diet at all. And it would be amazing if we did them both and then realize, why'd we do that? And it's a bigger problem. So I agree, and thanks for that information.
So I also, Tom is here, our director from Public Works, and I didn't know if he wanted to add anything. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. So I've looked at this in detail, and the suggested traffic improvements need to be done if you're going to do the road diet, and they will. The one thing that we brought up is the Hiller interchange, but it's generally interchanges in the communities that become the property or the responsibility of the local agency to move through the system, and Caltrans comes in later. And so that would be something that we would, if the board so chose, we would have to go probably through HCOG and get some funding to do the studies. Caltrans did commit that whatever work they do now will not preclude the on and off ramp. So that's as far as they've gotten on the study. But as you've probably seen, Fortuna is moving ahead with their interchange projects on the Caltrans highway. Arcata is moving ahead with two of theirs. The Trinidad Rancheria is moving ahead. In this day and age, Caltrans doesn't do that kind of work anymore in the local agencies. It's generally the local agency that does that. So just a word of caution on that is a game changer, I believe. We haven't done the traffic study, but that would make a very big change in the traffic movements and might even mitigate some of the other requirement or recommendations that have come up if you go with the road diet. So that's what I have to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank you. And to clarify, we haven't done the traffic study for the interchange or the off-ramp analysis. Not
That is
we
correct.
have for the half-mile section of Central Avenue that we're talking about today.
We did Central, McKinleyville, Hiller, Railroad, Murray.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. That's what I wanted to clarify. Thanks.
Okay, I have one clarifying question. Most of the opposition that I have seen is around the road diet. Opposition and for is around the road diet. And if the road diet is excluded from the McKinleyville Town Center project, what does that do to the McKinleyville Town Center project?
I think from the standpoint of most of what's proposed, it does not have a big change. I think the thing that it does do is that there's the opportunity here, and this is one of the things that the MCMAC struggled with, was the idea of placemaking. What do you want to have an identity for the town center? And then do you want to have it be in two parts or one? Part of the desire was to create a better connection between the east and west side of Central, to narrow that down a little bit, make the pedestrian crossing a little safer. Those are policies out of the community plan as well. Or do you want to have a 5-lane arterial running through the middle of what's the town center? And then if you have that, then do you really continue with the form-based code on the town center, And what may end up happening is people aren't as likely to reinvest in those properties that are along Central.
Okay. So we are going to go to public comment, but before I have a question for you. So is there opportunity for the applicants to speak, and where would you like that process to happen if there is?
Well, I think the applicant in this case is the county.
Okay.
So there are property owners, but I would recommend that you give everybody just an equal amount of time. And if you want to ask property owners particular questions, that can be done.
Okay, so the board can come back to ask clarifying questions of any public speaker. That will happen at the conclusion of public comment. So if one of the board members wants to bring someone back up to the podium or on Zoom, then that is going to be an allowable action from this board. So we're going to start with public comment if the board is done. Is the board done? Have any more clarifying questions? Okay. So we are going to start on, I ask that you back up just a little bit, and that it's okay because we're going to go to Zoom first, and then we'll come to the podium. And so we're going to start, and Kaylee is going to manage our Zoom process, and so I'm going to start with Kaylee.
Thank you, Chair. Caller 7718, I will unmute you and you will have 2 minutes.
Hello, I hope you can hear me. Thanks a lot for calling from Mexico. A very important issue, that's why I'm taking the time to call in. I do not support, at this time particularly, moving forward with the road diet. I hope you will bifurcate that from the rest of the project. You're basically putting a road diet on the road, but you're putting your population on steroids and bulking up. And those two combinations, without looking at this, I think would be a critical mistake. Just so you know, McKinneyville is already in a traffic area where it's kind of on the edge where I go to their shop at all, and I make sure I don't go during the rush hours because the traffic's already that way with 4 lanes and the inter down the middle lane where we can move freely from lane to lane. Strongly support you moving forward with the rest of the project. Let's put this on hold until there can be further studies and issues such as were brought forward by your community services district are addressed. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Caller 4376, I will unmute you and you'll have 2 minutes.
My name's Kelly Garrett. The ordinance before you represents development uncoupled from safety and major deviations from the general plan. It promises a town center, but delivers something far less. A deregulated growth zone with no coordinated transportation plan, no guaranteed civic space, and no commitment to protect wetlands or the community's rural character. This process began and ended with violations of transparency. The MCMAC appointed itself as the ordinance task force without public notice. The board packet for this meeting was released Friday for a Monday morning meeting, leaving the public far less than 72 hours to review. Even my Public Records Act request submitted months ago to document the county's pattern of ignoring wetland policies has gone unanswered. The Brown Act and Public Records Act guarantee public access, yet those rights have been denied again. The FEIR was pushed forward by the MCMAC before the public ever had a fair chance to respond, and the ordinance section 6.4 requiring wetland fill prior to subdivision directly guts the wetland protections of Policy 15 of the McKinleyville Community Plan. While public debate has fixated on the road diet, the county has quietly advanced a wetland relocation clause and staff level approvals without hearings. That's not planning, that's avoidance. It can still be redeemed. I respectfully ask the board to delete the wetland relocation clause from section 6.4, certify the FEIR only with conditions that prohibit ministerial approvals for wetland fill and relocation and project development, and require at least 1 acre of civic space behind Safeway so the town center actually serves the community. Thank you.
Wesley, can I have you kind of curve around so people that are outside can come in and hear the public comments? There you go. Thanks so much. Come forward so you can hear the public comments. That way we're not repeating a bunch of stuff. And everybody will have an opportunity for public comment. I'll call for it 2 or 3 times. So even if you're seated and you decide you want to, you can pop up and come forward. That's not a problem, okay? We're going to continue with Zoom.
Thank you, Chair. Caller 3386, I will unmute you and you will have 2 minutes.
Hello, this is Tim Woodward. I'm a resident of McKinleyville. I know a few of you on the board there, and I've seen at least a couple of people in the audience watching it online that I know. So I'm unsure. Actually, I'm pretty much against narrowing down Central Avenue, and I would like to know how much consideration has been given to adjusting traffic in a way that's been discussed doing on Central, and doing that on Hiller, doing that on Pickett, McKinleyville Avenue, Railroad Drive, and creating that space as sort of the walkable, parkable area rather than Central Avenue. I realize that doesn't tie the opposite side of Central in, Pearson Park side as well, and so some considerations would need to be done to make that more of a walkable crossover. But I'm in favor of the idea of creating a really inviting town center area. But I think that taking a look at some of these other roads as the option to create that would be a positive experience. If you do something like the interchange on Hiller, how much added traffic and what is that going to do to, for example, the Life Plant and Humboldt area? You're going to get a lot of additional traffic going through there as well. So that's primarily what I would want to talk about there. There's other comments I could make, but we'll keep it limited here. I'm personally in favor of adding a duck pond for the wetlands area, like Sequoia Park, a walkable duck pond or something. And I don't think that area that we're talking about is really much of a wetland area to be concerned about. So I know that's a whole nother can of worms, but all right, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller 3678, I will unmute you and you'll have 2 minutes.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Kalt, and I live in McKinleyville. First, I want to thank everyone who was involved in adding the new bike lanes on Hiller Road, which I rode on yesterday to go to the grocery store and felt safe riding my bike on that road for the first time. I even saw a mom with a young kid biking on that road in the bike lane, so super cool. Thank you, everyone. I also want to thank the Micmac and county staff for putting so much time and effort into this ordinance over the past 6 years, and all the community members who helped develop it. It's not perfect. I would like to see some different things, but I really urge the board to adopt the McKinleyville Town Center ordinance as written. It reflects thoughtful deliberation and compromise that has been achieved after many public hearings. I've lived in McKinleyville since 1972, and I was thrilled when the Micmac was formed to advise the Planning Commission, which finally gave us a voice in planning issues that affect our town. What we're dealing with now on Central Avenue is the cumulative effects of lots of individual subdivisions that the county approved without considering traffic impacts on Central. And, somebody said at the last hearing, the Planning Commission hearing, that it's as wide as South Broadway and Eureka, and we really don't need that in McKinleyville. What we need is a safe way to walk and bike. The Central Avenue redesign will be good for businesses and for people who live and work in McKinleyville. Even if you drive, you become a pedestrian the minute you step out of your car. So please support the Micmac's recommendations and approve the Town Center ordinance as written. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Caller 6895, I will unmute you and you will have 2 minutes.
this is Carol Schmidt, and I'm a McKinleyville resident. I want to first thank the MCMAC and the supervisors for a really great discussion. I want to say that I'm 100% in support of a placemaking for McKinleyville. And the strategies that are going into it and the thoughtfulness over years of both public input and study is incredible. I moved to this area a couple of years ago from the South Bay, where I saw like what is being done in Camino Real, El Camino Real, to try and make that a placemaking effort. I know that it's been done in San Jose very successfully. I just saw a number of cities that have done traffic calming measures, which has meant that people do stay in the community. They don't leave. And what Central Avenue is right now is a good example of those places. It's a highway through the middle of a city where pedestrians, school children, and people want to get out of their cars. We have a lovely area. We're going to have a lot of climate refugees coming to the area, and we really need to support people being outside of a car-centered sort of viewpoint. So I think what I've heard today is that there's a lot of research being done, that a traffic study will be implemented as well, and that from the wetlands plan, and I'm someone that works both in energy and environment, that experts have confirmed that the plan that is in place is a great plan and even better than what's currently available.
Apologies, your time has ran out, and I'm moving to the next caller. Caller 8336, I will unmute you and you'll have 2 minutes. Caller 8336, you have been unmuted. You can try to press *6 if it's not working on my end. Okay, Chair, that is all I have on Zoom.
Hear me?
Oh, yes, I can hear you.
Hear me? Oh my goodness, that was a deal. Okay, thank you. So here it goes. I'm not alone, as I'm left wondering if McKinleyville Advisory Committee and Planning Department treat public input as having any real weight at all. For example, many of us at that McKinleyville Town Center plan have a very small percentage be set aside for affordable housing units. Director Ford told MCMAC that this is a very complicated, difficult issue and should be tabled for another time. We disagreed, stating that California has templates designed for various counties to do this easily. We said 6,000 people that are going to be moving into McKinleyville don't have that time to wait. McKinleyville, MCMAC tabled it anyway. We were ignored. McKinleyville has 16,000 people. That's the 2020 census. But less than 1% of this population have participated here. That's concerning, especially since 33% increase to our population will be planned here and now living and working in this town center. From my recollection of reading about this project, this plan was largely an addendum to the developer's original request, building a life plan. I've heard that this is done the way it's done. Approval first, make adjustments. Well, we, the public, are asking for adjustments. The developer is requesting full ministerial control.
And that is an extremely irresponsible plan, given the size and nature of this project. Please allow life plan. That's not a question. But this added project, this expansion for the rest of McKinleyville Town Center, that needs to be a new project. Humboldt County is now considered a climate haven. Population is growing. That's inevitable. But if you want our input, there's currently a trust issue of whether we'll be heard. As for the record,
Sorry, you have ran out of time. I'm moving to the next caller, 4509. You will be unmuted and have 2 minutes.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you for the 2 minutes. My name's Sequoia Hudson. I live in McKinleyville. I've lived here since the early 90s with my family, raised my children here. And I'm just calling to kind of understand a little bit more about the proposal with the road diet and the development I've been trying to plug in. And really what's confusing me, I guess if I can get some clarity or understanding of the timeline of this proposed road diet development, is this something that is being proposed to be developed prior to the town center development? Or is it going to be something that is going to be developed as the town center is developed? Because I feel like if it's something that's happening prior, it's hard to really conceptualize or understand how this reduction of the road will work in its current state, but possibly would really make sense in the development phase, or like, you know, as things are changing, it might make sense with the changes that the road diet makes a lot of sense. I really like the idea of slowing down the traffic and the walkability and how it could potentially create this community center, but not with by creating congestion, which the way everything sits right now, it just seems like it's going to create congestion. But again, might make sense as the development of the town center happens. I think the Hiller Road discussion is something that seems like an idea worth looking into, especially to relieve some of the congestion and change how things look. And so I really just want some clarity around the timeline of the road diet development. And then the only other thing I really want to ask and maybe get some information on would be how this the town center development is going to affect what people in the community have been looking into as far as incorporating the town. Is it going to change the financial situation with the you know, how much money gets given to the county versus how much the area would need to sustain itself? I forget the list.
Your time has ran out, and Chair, that is all on Zoom.
Okay, we're going to give you one last time, if you're on Zoom, to raise your hand. We will not be coming back to Zoom for public comment. So if you're listening on your phone and you want to make a comment, please raise your hand.
Caller 4615, I will unmute you and you'll have 2 minutes.
Is it on?
Yes.
Hello, is it on? Oh, good. Dennis Mayo, McKinleyville. First off, a lot of things about safety on Central Avenue. Support the town center concept and all the work you guys are doing there. Have at it. Cool. Central Avenue is rated by the Insurance Agencies Association of California as the 5th safest boulevard of its traffic in the state of California. There are a couple things that could help Central Avenue. One, on the west side, get rid of the ridiculous so-called bridle path. The damn thing's never worked. Try to ride a horse down that thing, trees will hit you in the chest. So remove that bridle path, widen that out, reduce the vegetation somewhat. You'll have plenty of access, people with modality issues. Then go over on to, that's the east side, I apologize. On the west side, fix the sidewalks. Just spend some time, fix those sidewalks. You're going to have everything you need. If you do a more enhanced crosswalk by the entrance to the shopping center, I think you've got your problem solved. Do not create a bottleneck. And I tell you, why did the McMack vote in a split vote for the 3 lanes? Because they ignored the public comment. People did not like it, do not like it, and that's a bad deal. We helped create that McMack so it would listen to the public, not take off on their own specific agendas. Okay? Let's see, is there anything else? How much time do I have? 17 seconds? Well, thank you. I hope you will consider my comments.
Thank you. That is all, Chair.
Okay, I'm going to close public comment on the Zoom, and we're going to start with within the room. Please come forward. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. It's been a long time, but I'm looking at where I sat for 10 years, where you sit. It's good to be back in the Board of Supervisors chambers. I am a Wesley Chesborough. I'm a resident of McKinleyville, and my wife and I are property owners in McKinleyville. And I'm here to support the efforts of the MCMAC and the plan that they have recommended and has been unanimously adopted by the Planning Commission, both with regards to higher density housing and with regards to the traffic calming. I drive up and down Central almost every day to go to the post office or the grocery store or to church. And honestly, I'm willing to sacrifice a minute of my time going into the shopping center if it makes Central Avenue a little bit safer. I had the experience, the harrowing experience, which I wrote down to you in my letter to you, of pulling up in the right-hand lane with one of those yellow flashing safety crosswalks where 2 teenagers were walking out. And to my horror, I looked in my left-hand mirror and saw a car racing forward. He didn't see the teenagers didn't see me, and those teenagers escaped death by a couple inches right in front of me. It was one of the most horrifying driving experiences I've ever had. There's no reason why the thoroughfare through the middle of McKinleyville has to have the same width as South Broadway, Highway 101, with 10 times the amount of traffic. A lot of people are saying, oh, it'll slow us down. Well, that's the point, is to slow it down. We have many disabled people, including my wife, in McKinleyville, who need to get across Central Avenue, and it's a real challenge. And so I'm here to advocate for a more complete community and a safer community. The Municipal Advisory Committee has put years' worth of work, and I support what they've adopted, what the Planning Commission has unanimously recommended to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
Good morning. Brenda Rosedahl, lifelong.
You need to
McKinleyville
speak into the microphone.
Brenda Rosedahl, lifelong McKinleyville resident. I am totally against this road diet. And I totally disagree about the intersections that you were talking about earlier. When this was done a couple of years ago, we had construction on Central Avenue. Central Avenue at different times was down to 2, sometimes 3 lanes. When you came home, we are backed up onto the freeway. We're not even gonna get to the Sutter turnoff. I'm gonna take the road, 299. I'm gonna go the back way, come up Azalea, get my car all scratched up. Sometimes you can't even fit 2 cars there. This plan can't go forward until you do a professional, comprehensive traffic study, a current one. The last one that you did, and it's been thrown around by MCMAC when it benefits them, but it's being thrown out when it doesn't benefit them. My understanding, and I looked at that traffic study, is that it did not recommend the road diet. That was not their recommendation. So let's see here. I measured this yesterday. Edge of the sidewalk to where those shrubs are and the little horse trail is. It's just under 19 feet. Take some of that out. Put a little cement barrier in if you're worried about the bicyclists. We got tons of room to work with that right there. Right now, and we don't even have the 2 lanes. When I go home and I'm going down Sutter at night, the traffic's already backed up into one of the lanes, and it gets pretty far backed up. You're gonna create a horrible bottleneck here. There's gonna be accidents. People can't even, the older folks can't even get across there right now. They're never gonna get across there. Going down from 4 lanes to 2 lanes for that little stretch, what a horrendous idea. 2 minutes is obviously not enough. I haven't even gotten to number 2 yet. So I'm telling you, I'm totally against this. And I know some of you are gonna be picking up this gauntlet here and telling about the things that we talked about. You owe us a traffic study. 20 million minimum to do what Caltrans had suggested several years ago. It's probably 30 million now to fix those off-roads.
Thank you. I'm
so
sorry.
That we can even do this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, ma'am. Hi, good morning.
Hello, I'm Ann Lindsay. I'm president of Life Plan Humboldt Board and a McKinleyville resident. And there's some Life Plan Humboldt supporters who may not be able to.
Ma'am, you have to please address the board.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Life Plan Humboldt supporters to raise their hands because they may not all get a chance to speak. We actually reported 10,000 hours, volunteer hours in the last 2.5 years, so it's a real community project. I have regularly attended the McMac for the last 3.5 years since Life Plan Humboldt set our sights on building a vibrant senior community in the McKinleyville Town Center. And alongside MMAC, we've planned for our community and following the plan, including wetland management and enhancement. And we'll become an economic driver for the future town center development. We've made a partnership with Rural Community Housing for senior affordable or low-income housing. So it meets a real need in the community, and that's been an goal of our board all along. There's no other development in Humboldt County that's had such the whole town center, that's had such attention from citizens. It's surpassing any design review committee that I've ever heard of. And the MMAC members themselves, participants in the over 45 presentations staged for public input. And I urge you to follow the recommendations of MMAC, the Planning Commission, and the Planning Department, and certify the EIR, adopt the Town Center Ordinance, have courage. We want to get our development going. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. My name is Charles Perkins from McKinleyville. I'm here to say that I strongly support the town plan and the road diet. My grandkids walk down Central Avenue to go to school, and it's scary. I do all my shopping there, and I've sprinted across Central Avenue many times, and it's scary. So something should have been done 30 years ago, and I strongly support it is now. Beyond that, if McKinleyville is going to become a town, as is being discussed, a proper town, it needs to have an identity. We're not going to have Old Town, but even Trinidad and Blue Lake have a sense of town's identity. And the road diet and this plan is essential to create that. I'm convinced that, and there are studies to show that when you do that kind of thing, business actually increases. And so I strongly support the road diet, and I hope you'll approve it.
Thank you. Good morning.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Clark, and I'm a resident of McKinleyville. I used to live on Dow's Prairie in the 1890s, and I now live off School Road near the Hammond Trail, and I'm a huge supporter of the Life Plan. I grew up in San Jose, and in San Jose, it's not so different from Humboldt. It started out as an agricultural community, and there were parts of San Jose that tried to retain that identity. There's a neighborhood called Lincoln Avenue, and that particular neighborhood had a 4-lane road going through their main area, their main downtown, where the shopping district was. There was a lot of congestion, and they had a road diet probably 15, maybe 20 years ago. It transformed the neighborhood, and people that were initially very fearful of it and objected to it have turned into huge supporters because it enlivened the neighborhood. The businesses thrived. Restaurants now vie for places there. Property values have gone up. Other communities in the outlying areas all want to replicate it. Los Gatos, Saratoga, the east side of San Jose, they find that it makes for safer streets. It makes for it gives a sense of identity to the area. And I just want to reassure people that it's scary, and I was initially one of the objectors in San Jose, and I'm grateful now to look back on it and see what an incredible place it is now, and to know that McKinleyville is trying to achieve something similar.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Yes, board, thank you for being here. Director Mattson, especially you, John Ford, thank you for staying in our community. You know, we recognize you live in McKinleyville. Let me give you a history about planning of Central Avenue. Well, I was selected by this board back in 2015, and we worked for tirelessly for 4 years getting Central Avenue the way we wanted. Everybody came to the table on that. Okay, and now we want to change. How did Central Avenue get tied up in this EIR? Okay. When I was on the Micmac, our priorities were safety. We helped progress the Measure Z. Okay, we took on Central Avenue. We did safe route to schools, which has been dropped. Go around our schools and see how our roads are and sidewalks. Okay, yeah, we began on the town ordinance, but that wasn't our priority. Okay. 4 years of planning. Tom Matson, thank you very much. You were there at many meetings. Our county planning, everybody was there at plenty meetings, and now we're trying to reverse this. Okay, I've worked for SHN for 45 years. I've been involved on these projects, EIRs, traffic studies. You guys, what are you thinking? Micmac, shame on you. What are you thinking? Okay.
Sir. Thank you, sir. Hi, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Kenny Richards, a lifelong resident of McKinleyville. Went to school there, was raised there, went to work there as a superintendent of Northern Humboldt for my last 15 years, and just retired from Cal Poly Humboldt. So I'm only here to speak about the road diet. There are certain things about the road diet. Individuals, the question is again, how did Central Avenue get tied up into this? And the fact is, I didn't respond until I read from the Arcata Eye in regards to that. Everybody I've talked to, for the most part, at the homecoming game Friday night, were basically saying, makes no sense whatsoever. Talk to 2 or 3 businessmen right along Central Avenue. They're completely opposed to this. So I think before you jump on this Central Avenue move, again, we're going to gain 6,000 more people or whatever. Great. You know what I mean? But the point is, you don't decrease the roads and the size of the roads to take care of a new 6,000 people when everybody's got 2 cars, right? So I would just, again, thank you for listening, and I'm opposed to deletion of any of those lanes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Lori Shepard. I'm a 30-plus year resident of McKinleyville. I've been asked to read a couple of statements from people who couldn't be here. The first one is from Frank McGuire. His statement reads, I live off of North Bank Road. I worked for the California Highway Patrol for 25 years, 15 of which were in the CHP Humboldt area. Central Avenue used to be known as the crash beat because there were so many accidents prior to the alteration that added double lanes directionally north and south with a center turn lane and the addition of stoplights and a bicycle lane. Those changes reduced serious traffic accidents. Channeling traffic from 2 lanes north and south to 1 lane each direction will create serious congestion and increase accidents, especially from 7 to 9 a.m. and 3:30 to 6 p.m. Traffic coming into McKinleyville will dramatically back up on 101 North and North Bank Road. Accidents will increase. The road diet is in the heart of the business district and emergency response stations in McKinleyville. This proposed road diet would impede emergency response from the fire station and from the Humboldt County Sheriff's substation. There is even a school in the middle of the planned area. Traffic from businesses and post office, which are often very crowded, are also very close to the emergency response stations. Imagine fire, police agencies, and emergency responders from McKinleyville and outlying areas attempting to get through traffic during a disaster. Lives could be lost. And the other one's from Diane Eric McGuire. It's similar. I don't think I can read it all and get it in time. I would like to add, there are many of us who do not live in areas of McKinleyville that are walkable or bikeable. I live out off of Azalea Road. I have a mountain bike. I have an e-bike. I can't get to the town center without endangering my life. These bike lanes fix the other roads first. They don't help everybody.
Thank you. Hi, good morning.
Good morning. I'm Elisa Smith, and I'm a lifelong resident of Humboldt County, and I've owned a home in McKinleyville for over 17 years now. Rex might appreciate it. I was one of the first committee members for Hiller Park construction. I had to leave it because I moved to Blue Lake for a few years. And we surveyed the town of McKinleyville in my time there, and what we overwhelmingly heard was that McKinleyville did not want a town center. They did not want a bunch of high-density growth. They wanted single-family growth and some slower growth. You have now shamelessly burdened McKinleyville for over 30 years with high-density housing. I live off of Sutter Road. I turn onto it every day. Okay, whatever the interpretation here, what it's like is not. It's getting more and more difficult to turn onto my road when I come home. Like so many people experienced when they did shut down 2 lanes of Central Avenue. I got trapped out on the highway because traffic was backed up from Hartwood to Highway 101 regularly. I felt endangered sitting on the highway waiting to get onto the off-ramp. Nobody that I've talked to in this town supports this road diet. We understand growth is going to happen in McKinleyville. Most of us are against this town center. I've been and sat in on MMAC meetings and found they summarily just disregarded anybody that opposed this. And everybody I saw speak at the meetings I sat in on was opposed to most of this project. So the committee itself was appointed by you. I know at one point headed by a Pearson employee. It feels like that you're not being honest. You were not honest with the committee for Hiller Park years ago because you came out and told everybody that, oh, McKinleyville wants a bunch of growth. That was not what the town said to this board. You know, it wasn't any of you. But again, I know a lot of people in McKinleyville. I've been here my whole life, and they are all very opposed to this. So the development, we understand that's going to happen. This road diet needs to go away.
Thank you. Hi, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Ira Blatt. I wrote a letter to the board. I've been a resident of Arcata for over 25 years. I serve on the board of Life Plan Humboldt. Life Plan Humboldt would be very pleased to be the first development in the town center and boost economic activity. Timely review and adoption of the EIR and the Q-Zone ordinance is essential for Life Plan Humboldt to move forward. Life Plan Humboldt is a nonprofit with time-bound and limited funding. Success will be threatened by further delay in the schedule. Life Plan Humboldt has been planning and gaining support in the local community for over 5 years and is ready to start the building process once the EIR and the town center ordinance is approved. The most prudent decision you can make is if you're in doubt about what to do about the road diet, delay that decision. Delay the decision of the road diet until you can do a traffic study, et cetera. But go forward with the EIR and the town center ordinance. That's essential. Delay could very much negatively affect the development. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, board. My name is Greg Orsini. I'm a resident of McKinleyville Community Services District. I have 35 years of experience in the public sector. I'm on the, for full disclosure, I'm on the board of directors for Life Plan Humboldt. I'm also on the board of directors for McKinleyville Community Services District, and I spent from 2012 to this past February on the McMac also. A lot of what I had planned to say was already brought up by Ira, so I'm not gonna talk about those things. But to reiterate what he said and support what he said. My concern is related to, I will go into the road diet part of it. I think the board is at a precipice right here. You can bifurcate the road diet part of the process and still pass the rest of the Q zone for the town center. I would highly support that. The road diet will not be in a vacuum. It's going to have effects on all of McKinleyville, all the arterial roads in McKinleyville. A lot of the issues with McKinleyville Avenue, Central Avenue, are not related to traffic control. It's bad behavior. You're going to be shunting that bad behavior onto our roads where our residents live into neighborhoods, and make it. If you think Central Avenue is unsafe, wait until you shunt all that traffic into the neighborhoods. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning. Please come forward.
Morning. My name is Sylvia Mitchell. I am a McKinleyville resident, and my household is opposed to the road diet plan. Changes to Central Avenue will affect McKinleyville's unique character for generations. Central Avenue and its shops are part of McKinleyville's practical identity, and easy traffic access is needed for businesses to be successful. Enforcement of a lower speed limit and speed bumps would be substantially less expensive than restructuring the driving lanes. The bicycle lanes need clear and regular painting budgeted, some white posts and barriers, and the crosswalks need more intense painting and signaling. McKinleyville has existing bicycle and walking areas that are already here and could be expanded. The Midtown Trail, if extended to the south, would be the envy of any city, California or elsewhere, passing through the proposed town center developments with tributaries to the existing shopping plaza, the Seagoat Farm Stand, the Heartwood Trail, and on to School Road and the Mad River Trail. Paved trails through the west side of town would be family-friendly and a boost for tourism. The new Hiller Road project is a great example of what could be done to many streets on the west side of town, where roads have incomplete walkways and edges. It would be miraculous to make improvements for bicyclists and walkers on Central Avenue north of Railroad Drive and north of Murray Road. I hope there's still time to take a closer look at improving the existing assets in McKinleyville and spend money there. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, board members. My name is Mary Burke. I am the current chair of the McKinleyville Municipal Advisory Committee. And as you heard, the draft ordinance represents over 5 years of public meetings and workshops and input from people in McKinleyville as well as local and nationally recognized planners. And I wanted to particularly call out and thank the administrative support the county has provided, as well as, of course, Director Ford's time and commitment to this process. And I think the hope and the vision here with the ordinance is that our community have a more abundant, diverse, accessible housing, a modern town center that creates an environment for all people, a safe and healthy environment for all people. And we think, or the MCMAC bring this before you, believing this ordinance is closer to realizing that vision. But you hear the divergent views, right, on Central Avenue planning. And again, I think where we can come together is around this idea of really needing that comprehensive study, not just for circulation, but for multimodal access. And I want to call out Director Matson's vision for bringing forward what we're doing on Hiller Road, that you can go out and see, and how that traffic calming is functioning, providing this really vibrant area that people will divert, maybe even to go view, but will enjoy passing through Hiller Road. So thank you for your consideration of this matter.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Bushnell and members of the board. My name is Maya Conrad. I have been a longtime resident of McKinleyville, and I've also served on the MCMAC for 6 years. I really want to thank Director John Ford and all of his staff for the support and dedication that they've had through holding our hands through so many meetings on the Town Center Ordinance. And I also want to thank Director Madsen and his crew, who are out on Saturday and Sunday helping with this community-led project on Hiller Road. And as Mary Burke said, please, if you get a chance, take a walk or ride your bike, and you can experience what Hiller feels like, which is a nice prelude to what this town center could be. Now, when we started this, we did a lot of canvassing, and there were so many people who said, we want a sense of place, we want a heart of McKinleyville, and we want a place where people feel safe. And as one public speaker said, McKinleyville Middle School is right within the town center, and now with the closing of Morris, we're going to get a lot more traffic of children. We want a place where kids feel comfortable walking, where their parents feel comfortable walking and biking to school. We could have that reality. So with the town center, as I've represented the community in this endeavor for the last few years, I've looked at not just our community of today, but also our future generations. And as one public member said at a McMack meeting, they said, please be brave and vote in favor of the Central Avenue Road Diet. I understand it's complicated, but I chose to be brave and envision a really wonderful heart of McKinleyville for us in the future. So thank you for considering this.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Colin Fisk. I'm the Executive Director of CRTP, and many of our more than 850 members and supporters are McKinleyville residents. Many more rely on McKinleyville for shopping, education, healthcare, recreation. CRTP has been engaged with town center planning since the process started 6 years ago, and I want to say we are deeply grateful to Director Ford and his staff, and to the MCMAC for all their hard work on the ordinance, and to Supervisor Madrone, without whom I think this wouldn't have happened. We're truly excited to see the town center ordinance adopted, and we encourage you to adopt it as written. Regarding Central, I've ridden down Central many times on my bike, cars speeding past inches away. I've had to cross 2 lanes of traffic, wait in the middle of the street to make a left turn into a business, with cars and trucks speeding by on both sides, pulling up in front of me or behind me in that 2-way turn lane. I've also crossed on foot many times and been almost hit by drivers turning across crosswalks. It's really not a safe and welcoming environment, and to be a successful town center, some things have to change. I do wish that the current naysayers had joined the process earlier, because my experience was that many of the folks who initially were skeptical of the idea really came around once they learned more. I think the Planning Commission, as you know, recommended adoption of the ordinance, just as the MCMAC did, including the Central Avenue changes. Regarding the idea of a community-wide transportation plan, we support that, but as you know, there's currently no money for it, and it would take years to develop, and I think it's important for the county not to tie its hands in the meantime. So we ask that if you move forward with a community-wide plan, that you take that action separately, and rather than making it contingent on anything in the town center ordinance. So again, we strongly urge you to adopt the ordinance as written, including the Central Avenue changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. My name's Jacqueline Handy, and I have been a McKinleyville resident since 1970. McKinleyville recently widened Central Avenue to 2 lanes with a center lane in each, and the 2 lanes in each direction, with a visible green bike lane, improving access for pedestrians and for bike riders, all funded by taxpayers. Due to heavy traffic, I understand that Caltrans has advised against reducing the number of lanes. It's often difficult to cross to the street if you are driving your car and someone is going across the street and you want to make a right-hand turn, you back traffic up, waiting even on a green light. So by cutting it down, there'll be no way for a person to keep on going straight through. If someone's trying to make a right-hand turn, it'll back the traffic up even further. Additionally, with the plans to attract more elderly residents to the town center, fewer lanes could obstruct emergency vehicles, creating hazards for those who need assistance, which would be a death trap. This change doesn't benefit McKinleyville residents, workers, or business owners. It's unclear who will profit, but it's definitely not the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I seen you on the news this morning.
Yes. Deborah Lankella, concerned citizen of McKinleyville. I know McKinleyville has to change and will continue to change. I do think the proposed road diet would be a poor decision for the residents of McKinleyville. John Ford stated in his interview that there will be 2 lanes and a turn lane. The turn lane is only good for turning left, doesn't help traffic making right-hand turns into businesses. Merging into traffic from one of the side roads would be very difficult, if not impossible, causing frustration and stupid actions that lead to accidents. A few facts from the Caltrans traffic study released March 2023. It stated that there were 17,000 people living in Mac. Up to 12,000 vehicles travel on Central Avenue to and from access ramp at Central Avenue US 101 Exchange throughout the day in a 24-hour period. 80.3% of people in McKinleyville use their cars on a daily basis. There is a 20-foot public utility easement on the easterly side of Central that could be better utilized. It did not recommend for reduction for Central Avenue, but a multi-use trail. We only have more people and more cars. People would drive alternate routes, creating more traffic use on roads that were never designed to handle heavy traffic. There needs to be effort and money put into building McKinleyville's infrastructure. They keep saying this could take 20 years, but then again, if they get funding, it could happen sooner. We, the people of McKinleyville, are feeling we haven't been heard through this whole process. We get 2 or 3 minutes to voice our concerns or ask questions, which we don't get any feedback on. They say they have had public workshops, but in the beginning of all this, it was during COVID. In closing, I urge you, the board, to vote to keep Central Avenue as it's currently 4 lanes and a turn lane, with McKinleyville being the largest unincorporated community in the county. If incorporated, McKinleyville would be the 2nd largest in the county. Maybe it's time for us to incorporate.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, board. I am Pat Kaspari, a resident of McKinleyville. I'm also the general manager of the McKinleyville Community Services District and a member of the MCMAC. I've been authorized by the board of directors of the McKinleyville Community Services District to speak on behalf of the district in support of the proposed town center ordinance. The Humboldt County Planning Department staff, and particularly Director Ford, have accomplished an exceptional task in working with the MCMAC and the community of McKinleyville to prepare an extremely well-crafted town center ordinance. The town center ordinance will not only benefit and guide the development of McKinleyville's town center to turn it into a destination spot, but will be an asset for all of Humboldt County with improved housing, community, and business facilities. The ordinance facilitates the installation of pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure that will make Hiller and Central Avenue much safer for the community. It facilitates additional and extended trail networks in McKinleyville. It directs the improvement of very degraded wetlands to make them a source of improved habitat for wildlife and the public. It facilitates homes and workspaces in the urban center versus promoting urban sprawl that will impact undeveloped areas throughout the county. I'm going to jump ahead. The district has concerns about the road diet for Central Avenue, given that the potential impacts to the district's water, sewer, and street light infrastructure have yet to be fully analyzed. Your planning commission made an excellent recommendation that a McKinleyville-wide traffic study be conducted and any potential revised road diet be reviewed with the MCMAC prior to implementation. The district would ask that MCSD also be included in the design review to ensure that we can still maintain and work on our infrastructure safely. The McKinleyville Community Services District urges the board to certify the EIR and adopt the town center ordinance as written.
Thank you. Good morning.
Hello. I'm Shel Barsani, a 46-year resident of McKinleyville, city center homeowner. I'm a CPA and I own a CPA business in McKinleyville. And I'm also a past director of the McKinleyville Community Service District. I see 2 things wrong with this ordinance. Number 1, it is written ministerial, and if it's approved, the public will no longer have a say in what happens in McKinleyville's town center. This is not only unacceptable, but it is also undemocratic. I think it needs to be rewritten. Number 2 is the road at Central Avenue does not need a diet. It does not need to go from 5 to 2 lanes. A 2013 Caltrans traffic study showed 15,000 cars use Central Avenue every day. Then using that information, the MCMAC worked tirelessly with residents, business owners, and transportation professionals to design the Central Avenue safety corridor that we have today. The county designed a plan to accommodate everyone, vehicles, bicycles, pedestrians, and yes, even horses. The county designed ADA accessible road crossings at every single crosswalk. Every crosswalk has stoplights that can be timed to slow down traffic. It was a thoughtful, community-driven process aimed at improving safety and traffic flow for everyone. In the 10 years since its completion, CHP statistics show only 5 major accidents along the entire Central Avenue, and most of these are where it changes from 5 lanes to 2 lanes. Given the fact that it seems prudent and fiscally responsible to preserve or expand the 5 lanes we already have on the entire length of Central, please do not pass this ordinance. It makes Central Avenue less safe and gives no say to residents regarding their input in the future of the town center.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Judy Hodgson, and I was a reporter for more than 40 years in Humboldt County before I retired 5 or 6 years ago completely. I covered the Board of Supervisors, the Planning Commission, the McKinleyville Services District in the years, I want to take you back farther than 2015. I covered these organizations during the time that Central Avenue was built. And there was a lot of opposition at the time to some of the things in there, just like you're hearing today. There was a lot of good in that plan. The underground utilities, the landscaping, a lot of things were good about that plan, but what was always a bad design was the 5-lane highway. It is so huge. It is difficult to cross even, it just takes time to get across that. It is not pedestrian friendly. It was bad design then, and we have an opportunity now. I never thought we would see this, but we have an opportunity now to correct something that maybe we didn't do a great job on last time. They even took out the beautiful cypress trees in those days that were traffic calming, and they were lovely. Anyway, some of okay, 31 seconds, I can do this. What I want you to think about today, I am the one that asked the MCMAC to be brave and to approve it. And I'm really impressed that the McKinleyville Services District is here backing this thing. And that should mean something to you. On one side, you have people in cars that are protected. On the other side, you have people in walkers, with strollers, with bikes going to school. I ask you to vote in their favor.
Thank you, ma'am. Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Chair Bushnell and Board of Supervisors. I've been before you in the past wearing different hats. I, at one time, was a department head for you. I recently have sat on the MCMAC and chaired 2 of the years that we've been through town center deliberations. My time on the MCMAC is now sunsetting by choice. I have been invited to sit on the board of the Ann S. Pearson Foundation, and so I'm speaking to you today with a statement derived from the foundation. Our foundation was established this year to guide the development of the town center parcels owned by Ann Pearson, which will come into nonprofit ownership when her estate is settled. The foundation exists solely to serve the residents of McKinleyville, with Ann's only request being that the land remain dedicated to public benefit. The foundation strongly supports the ordinance before you today, as recommended by the McKinleyville Municipal Advisory Committee. This ordinance is the product of balancing many years of public input, professional urban planning expertise, and careful deliberation, and it reflects the community's vision for a town center that balances housing, services, open space, and ecological stewardship. I'm going to cut out a paragraph in the interest of time. We urge you to adopt the ordinance as recommended by the MCMAC, confident that it honors the community process, protects natural resources, and provides the framework for a healthy, sustainable town center for generations to come. Thank you.
You do have 30 seconds left if you want to say.
You want me to pull out the paragraph? All right, I will. In particular, we believe Section 6.4 achieves the right balance by requiring that wetlands be protected in place or, where appropriate, relocated under the safeguards of county, state, and federal regs. This flexibility, combined with strong oversight, ensures both ecological protection and the ability to create a vibrant, walkable place where people can live, work, and play.
Thank you.
Perfect timing.
Hello there.
Good morning, Supervisor Bushnell and the team. My concern is about Central Avenue going to 4 to 2. I own a business. I do Jerry's Recycling. I ride a trike with a trailer. I pull recycling, and I don't know what else to say, but to John and Tom Matson, they doing a perfect job, but please, consideration not to put the 2 lanes in. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for taking the time to hear us. My name is Nicole Thomas. I have been a lifelong resident of McKinleyville since 1975. So I think a lot of us who have been there for a long time, change isn't the issue. We've seen a lot of change over time. We've had to. When suburbia came in, I believe there was a reason for the 4 lanes. And as a parent, I have chose to stay in McKinleyville and raise my child there. We have 5 schools, if you include Mad River High School. We have a lot of parents bringing their children daily to school, picking them up from school, taking them to practice, taking them to games. The impact of going from 4 lanes to 2 lanes would absolutely make things less safe, in my opinion. There are so many cars certain times of day. I know some times of day there are not. But as was mentioned, Sutter Road is very busy. It's almost as if there's a light down by Azalea, the amount of cars that just flow. It's like they all got a green light and they're just coming. It's constant. Again, I've seen the backup up to Bella Vista Hill. There is no way with that amount of traffic, for instance, in the mornings when parents are taking kids to school, and in the afternoons from 2 to probably 7 easily, all lanes are full most of the time. I have heard from my FedEx driver, my son gets a medication that is delivered once a month, and she said Central Avenue is the busiest street in Humboldt County, period. So a current traffic study, I think, is vital. Maybe a broader traffic study, and to take into consideration, again, the amount of parents, the amount of movement that happens in that time. The expansion of sidewalks is great, the wetlands is great, there's a lot of great ideas, but please keep 4 lanes, do not reduce to 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Bonnie McGregor. I've a resident of McKinleyville for 20 years and have participated in trying to get the ordinance to even be discussed. So I'm very grateful that it's gotten this far, and thank you, Supervisor Madrone, for bringing it forward, and thank you to John Ford and his staff for all the work that's been done. I want to talk about something else. I was waiting to the end of the comments about Central Avenue because this ordinance is the last time that the citizens of McKinleyville will have any say officially about what happens to the future of our town. And that sense of place is very important to a lot of people. And we reflect many different attributes of who this place is. And to me, one of the most important things is that we have a space, we have enough open space where we can come together and experience that in a built environment. Central Avenue is always going to go through the center of town, no matter how fast it's going. It's just a fact. And Pearson Park is on the east side. You can't see it from Central Avenue, and that's our civic area. But the built space on the west side, which now will be on the Ann Pearson Foundation land, is designated only 20,000 square feet minimum as the mandated public space. I'm asking you to put it in, change the ordinance to say at least an acre. I have a felt sense of the difference between a half acre and an acre. And living in a rural area, I think you all do too. So to have a sense and build it around, because the space has to be determined before the project goes forward. If we only have a half acre, it will never be more. So thank you.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Hi, I'm Twyla Sanchez, and I currently sit on the McMack. And I've lived in McKinleyville my whole life. And I just kind of want to stick up for the McMack a little bit. I know myself, we received a lot of letters. A lot of people came to the McMack to voice their opinions on many parts of the town center. And the letters were read, the emails were read, and what I did was I highlighted what I thought was their main points, and I did give people who live in McKinleyville a little more priority than people who wrote letters who lived in other areas that shopped in McKinleyville, say. And it's pretty 50-50. We are pretty much split on this issue. And I was one of those that opposed it, and then I after reading all the letters and listening to the comments, I did change my mind, and the main thing was safety. I heard safety, safety, safety. People walking along there, riding their bikes along Central Avenue do not feel safe. And a lot of people don't ride their bikes in the green space. They're up on the sidewalks. And I'm just really happy that McKinleyville is getting the Humboldt Commons and the We Are Up housing programs in McKinleyville. I think that's two great things for McKinleyville. And my biggest issue is open space. I don't think we have allotted enough open space in the town center. This was supposed to be the heart of McKinleyville.
I'm sorry, ma'am, your time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi. Good morning. If you're going to make a public comment and you're still sitting in the audience, if you could line up, we would appreciate that. Thank you.
Hi, Julie Fulkerson, lifelong resident of Humboldt County and a business owner, former business owner in McKinleyville. And I moved my business there because I was so excited about the potential of that community that many people have unfortunately had some not so pleasant things to say about. But I think McKinleyville is a great place. I shop there. I still find, well, of course, the new projects, We Are Up, as was just mentioned, and the Life Plan Humboldt Commons, are very exciting projects. But there are many things going on in McKinleyville that are about community. And I urge you to go ahead with this. There's been a lot of community input, more than any other situation I can remember in Humboldt County. And the really wonderful thing about this, I think, is it is about building community, and it's about keeping people safe, and what could be more important than that? So I hope you move forward in a positive vein and support all the work that's been done. Thanks.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Randy Sundberg, fourth generation McKinleyville resident. I'm an expert at holding people up in traffic situations. I wanted to offer up to you folks the same thing I offered the Planning Commission. When we recently did a water line project for the McKinleyville Services District, we had more complaints coming through our office about reducing Central Avenue down to one lane during our construction period than any other job I've ever had. So I'd like to offer up 2, 3, 4, 5 days of traffic control so you guys could see what it looks like. We had traffic backed up over Bella Vista and on the north end of McKinleyville as well. So I'd hate to see this thing. Central Avenue is already 2 lanes at one time, and I just feel like we'd be going backwards if we voted for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Tim Hooven, McKinleyville. I just want to echo what Randy said. Would probably help with that. And what Greg Orsini said, maybe separate this process out, because I think most people are kind of in favor of the town center Life Plan Humboldt, all that stuff, that's all good. It's just the road thing. We're concerned about safety on the adjacent roads. This neighborhood I live in, right off of Central, that's what we're worried about. The other part is what Supervisor Wilson brought up about what triggers these things. If you think about what's on Central Avenue in that area you're talking about, those are already built. Like, I think there's one empty lot in there on, like, the whole place. If you come down, you've got the school, Les Schwab, Eureka Natural Foods, the bank, fire department, pet store, or a dog place or whatever. And it's all built. So when are you going to go up against that curb? This is 50, 80 years. I don't know when people start tearing down those buildings, then they're going to be moving them up against the thing. Take this out of it and get a good plan and look at what's going to happen to all the rest of us that aren't going to feel safe in our neighborhoods because we're making it safer on that road that you know, there's a lot of room up there to do different configurations without pushing traffic out our way. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I'm David Enos. I've been in McKinneyville for not quite 35 years, Humboldt County for over 50 years. I know I don't look old enough. I taught architectural design at the high school level for a number of years, and we even were going to develop as a plan for the town center back in the 90s. We took that on as a project. So I think what you're doing so far as the development of that property is great. And I'd like to offer up a recommendation that I think might be palatable for both sides of the aisle, is that the road issue be removed from the rest of the process for now. And as this property is developed, to see how the impacts are affected by the traffic and the flow of people to and from work, and the seniors and the kids and the horses and whatever else they're going to be using the property, the roadway there. I think that two easy fixes right now would be to, as Dennis Mayo said, to do something about the sidewalk area because it's pretty old and needs attention. Straighten it out, widen it, make it more, get the bumps and stuff out of there. And then also lowering the speed limit and enforcing it so people are driving fast, because what's going to happen is you close it down, the crazy people who want to drive fast, they're not going to want to be in traffic, and they're going to be going on all the back streets, and it's going to make it more difficult and dangerous for others. So I think putting it on the back burner for now and road studies and seeing how it plays out would be a good option at this point. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have one last person coming up. If you do want to make public comment, please mosey on over to the doorway there and get in line, and then we're going to finish up public comment. Please come forward, sir.
Okay. Hi. Thank you for having me. I love seeing everybody from McKinleyville here. I mean, it's just such a sense of community. And my wife and I love everything that goes on there when it does. The concerts they have, the Chamber of Commerce, what they do. And I've heard from a lot of different people, and I get the 50-50 split, but, and it sounds like you're probably gonna take care with the traffic situation, study it more. But the community center is such a fantastic idea, and it looks like it's gotta happen. I think it's just gotta happen. And my wife and I both look forward to that. We own our home in McKinleyville. We do walk across that street, and you almost have to run sometimes, but it depends on what time of day. I just hope it goes forward. And thanks for your public service, everyone. I think that's so important. I hope we get more and more young people to, continue to get involved in, public service. That's it. Oh, one quick one. I used to commute to Sebastopol, and man, I mean, it took forever. That 2-lane went forever all the way through the town, so it was no big deal. But, I got used to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you're our last one.
Yeah. Ellen Brown.
lifelong Humboldt County resident, and I've had a home in McKinleyville for 40 years. We all know that it has to grow, but you can't have an urban area and a rural area, same thing. And you were saying, you know, we want to keep the village, but you can't do that with 4 stories of buildings. On the road diet, you've got to consider the buses that use the road. People have to be able to get around those, the trucks for those buildings. I work in a doctor's office, and we have a lot of older people that are now cutting up and going around Holly already. If you take it to 2 lanes and a turn lane, they're going to be in trouble. Even though they drive really well, the ones that need to have already reduced the driving that they do, but that would make it unbearable for those people trying to get in and out. And the buses that bring people from the care facilities already have problems trying to get across the street. If you have it bumper to bumper traffic, there's no way. And they'll be going up and around Holly and everything too, because I've already talked to them about that. So, I mean, there's got to be a balance. It's just that we have to find it. Does this need to go back to MCMAC and have them research it a little more? Maybe that's where we need to start. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna close public comment. And at this time, we're going to take a short recess. I'm sorry, but the board may also have some questions of some of the commenters, so I hope that you stay. We're going to take 20 minutes. We get a little hangry, and so I'm going to encourage the board to grab some food, which is in the CAO's office, use the facilities, and then we'll be back on in 20 minutes. Okay, thank you. So if you're going to be in the doorway, you could go out there or come in. Thanks so much. Okay, so we're going to come back, and we're first going to, I'm going to clarify if any of the board members have any questions of any of the commenters. And it does not look like it, and so we're going to go back to Director Ford.
Thank you, Chair. I would love to just clarify a couple things. One of the comments was made that wetlands would be able to be relocated and filled with just an administrative permit. That is not a true statement. While development is allowed with ministerial approval, and I want to clarify this too, it currently is allowed with ministerial approval. That's not a change. The community plan identifies that it wants to see development. It says without a special permit, which would be a discretionary permit. So it's encouraging not to create elaborate permitting processes as part of the plan. But the wetlands would require a special permit. That's by existing ordinance. There was a discussion on affordable housing, but the thing that I told the MCMAC was that in order to develop an affordable housing program, it is really a complicated process and should be addressed on a much larger scale. And what the MCMAC directed be done is that they would like to start that discussion amongst the MCMAC and then bring a recommendation back to the board. So I would anticipate at some point in the future that you will hear a recommendation from the MCMAC about whether to adopt affordable housing ordinances, inclusionary ordinances, or not. And then there was a comment that the developer asked for ministerial approval. This is not something the developer asked for. This comes out of the community plan. And then there was a desire to understand the timing of the road diet, and that there is no timing on that. It really is dependent upon financing. And as I mentioned in my response to Supervisor Bohn, that is going to have to be funded by other than development, because that will be an expensive process to undertake. And so there's not currently financing for it. There's not a timeline on that, so the town center can begin to develop without the road diet occurring. And that's part of the decision on the part of the Board of Supervisors today, is whether or not, as you've been asked several times, to defer the decision on the road diet. I just wanted to also identify that it's comforting to ask for additional studies. But then one of the things when you defer a decision that I would encourage the board to ask themselves is, what would be your tolerance with the results of the additional study? If the additional study came back and said, yes, there will be diversion of traffic onto other streets, would that be unacceptable? And you've already got a study that says that. And so if that's something that's unacceptable, then obviously the road diet shouldn't be pursued. But if, on the other hand, there is criteria placed upon defining a sense of place, defining what the community center looks like, recognizing that there will be some trade-offs involved, then those need to be the mitigating circumstances. I think it would be appropriate to follow the Planning Commission recommendation and do additional studies, and make sure that not only the studies but the design goes back to the MCMAC, and as has been asked for today, that it also be reviewed by MCSD.
Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the board, and we'll start having discussion. Who wants to go first? Supervisor Arroyo.
Can I defer for a question to be asked?
Sure, Supervisor Wilson.
Curious to hear what it is.
Yeah, this is just you had mentioned that in the options for, or what we saw for cross sections for the change in the road. Those are just suggestions in the current. They're just to give reference, right? I mean, they're not actually final designs. That could change and be different. I mean, I've seen so many different versions of that throughout communities that I've traveled to, so I'm just kind of wondering if that is the end.
Yeah, no, that's not intended to be the final design. While it was greatly influenced by Public Works, it's not an engineered design.
Right, hasn't gone, and then also there was a comment someone had mentioned about, there would be no right lane turning options, and this doesn't preclude that if that was.
Not only does that not preclude that, but that's part of the recommendation of the traffic study that I believe it's at, I think it's Hartwood, that there be a right turn, or it's at Hiller, that there be a right turn, even where it's a 3-lane section, that there should be a free right turn.
And I mean, in the sort of the cross section that's seen that one of the cross sections that shows like a separated bike paths on both sides of the road and those sorts of things. But in some communities, they do just one on one side, and they might do parking on the other side in order to address access to storefronts and those sorts of things. Is that within the framework of the potential? Because what we're asking for, at least, or what's being talked about, is storefronts, and I think Mr. Hooven brought it up as kind of we have that same issue, or not, whatever, which is that that the development up to the street front would be in place of the existing parking that's there now, and then you have buildings that are behind it, maybe. maybe it would just be something completely different, or maybe that'd be parking behind there. But what I'm getting at is I would like some flexibility in moving into the future, if this is where the kind of the direction we're going, to allow some back and forth on sort of those access points to get people into the downtown, be a part of that. I mean, it's just, and in exchange for reducing the requirement, the parking minimums, make sure that there is actually some public parking available as well in that construct. Is that something that could be discussed in the future as part of that design work?
Well, I would say that really should involve a full-on additional study.
Right.
Because one of the things that we backed away from was having parking on Central. And particularly made that decision when our traffic consultant said, if you wanted to slow traffic down, put parking on Central.
Right.
And it was like, oh, okay, I don't want to go that far.
I hear you. But what I'm getting at is, like, for deliveries and other things like that, I mean, we're going to have to make sure that there is at least a rear and
service entrance,
services or whatever. I'm just trying to figure out how that's going to work. I'll let you guys work that out. I get it. I'm thinking about so many places where I've seen, and I just want to put out there, there's a great book. It's called Confessions of a Recovering Engineer. I recommend everybody read this, even if you're not an engineer. It really speaks very clearly to the construct of especially in sort of the American experience of the idea that more and wider roads brings you prosperity, and it does a pretty amazing deconstruction of that construct across a lot of various landscape and town sort of areas and in cities as well. It's really it speaks very much to why we see even this term road diet, why it's becoming more popularized, that sort of thing. So when I looked at this project, or I guess what do we call it, this Q zone, the first thing I did actually was, when I dove into this question of the road diet, I basically did a pretty comprehensive search of road diet failures. That's what I really wanted to find out. Like, where are the road diet failures? Where does that happen? Where is that usually occurring? Now, I can tell you that there are far less failures than there are successes that you see in the studies, far less. But in general, the failures tend to occur, like there's a threshold of 20,000 trips a day is about where they begin to occur, or where there's certain cautions and design parameters you might have to think about in terms of that. That's moving into that's almost double of what we're talking about here in this space. The other example and the other thing I always think about when I look at proposals like this is, if the existing condition was as what is being proposed today, like if sort of the vision was created and it actually existed, like there was the 3 lanes, the center lane and the turn lanes, and then there was nice streetscapes, and there was buildings up to those corners with things. And would we be proposing to do what's there today? Like, would we be sitting here today like, what really needs to change? We need to widen that out, remove those buildings, pull it back. I don't think we would be doing that. And so that generally helps me in sort of, trying to figure out whether we're moving in the right direction or not. Whether it's perfect or not is a whole nother, things, whether I have certain criticisms of the details of that. But in general, and sometimes it does take time, and again, in deference to my good friend Tim Hooven, he's right. It takes time. Like, that is not. It's just the things that just do not happen magically or immediately. That's real. And if we're going to decide to move forward with something like this, then as the institution, the government, they're not a city. McKinney's not a city. We're the planning body for McKinleyville, good or bad. And I think if that's the commitment that we make today, even if it's a split vote, whatever that is, if that's the direction, then we have to support it. That's what I'm getting at. It's like we're gonna have to provide the resources to do that, and then understand that the expectation is that it brings value, not just a cultural value or a safety value, but really an economic value to that area. So, yeah, did I mention another, like, a place that I was thinking about is like Fort Bragg. And if you drive through Fort Bragg, the highway narrows down to 2 lanes, and it goes through it widens out to 4 lanes for just a little while. But if you look at the difference between the 4-lane section and the 2-lane section, the 2-lane section certainly has some congestion in it. But it also has a thriving storefronts, and it has a community that's doing all kinds of stuff. And I just can't imagine asking Fort Bragg to widen that out to 4 lanes in that spot, and that somehow that would make their community better. And if you compare that to the section where they did widen it out to 4 lanes down at the south end of that town, you can't. I mean, you're like the chicken running across the road there. I mean, it is just really dangerous. The community is completely separated from its oceanfront properties. It's like it has this very no man's land sort of feel to it in terms of like no pedestrians go walking from downtown down to that area. They just don't do it because it feels dangerous, and they're just not into it. So I could name off many other examples of this that I've seen across the United States that I've visited, especially after reading this book, where you really see these changes. So with that, I'm confident that if we do embark on this, that we'll do it with the care that needs to be done, and with the just that we have to understand that for the reasons why we would do something like this. Again, there's safety part of this. There's the part about the culture, but really there's a strong economic benefit to making these kinds of changes. I also think that when this was widened out to 4 lanes, we just really were, just from a design perspective, the engineers at that time were just told a different story. And that's really what goes into, when you read this about these sorts of things, it's like we're sold and told that these types of infrastructures would create benefits that in general were not as didn't come to fruition in the way that we might have imagined, especially in rural America. That's what I have for now, and I'm happy to have more discussion.
We're going to go back to Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank you. I thought I was missing a quick question, and so no, it's okay.
I just went for it, and I figured it was
Well, good. We all have lots of thoughts about this, and this is a great opportunity for me to hear from different perspectives. We have heard a ton of comment from folks, both today and in all manner of correspondence, and I really will agree with the person who said it's really kind of roughly divided down the middle about the traffic calming component of it, not necessarily the entirety of this zoning amendment. And that includes all of the many petitions and other methods of providing information. So, there really is a lot of diversity of opinion. And I think I've heard quite a few people say, everyone feels the way I do. And I'm here to tell you that not everyone feels the same way about it. And it may be an indication that, maybe the people you're in community with feel the same way. But we've gotten abundant diversity of feedback. So I want to kind of share a few things about Humboldt County and our not awesome stats when it comes to our roadways. Unfortunately, we're 4th out of 58 counties in the state for bicycle collisions and 5th out of 58 counties in the state for pedestrian collisions. It's more than twice the state average. We are working towards a Vision Zero approach where there are no injuries or fatalities on our roadways, but we're not there yet. So that is very much a goal that, you know, in our work, I look forward to kind of keeping in the sights and keeping in the front of my mind. I heard a couple of questions about, we're also amongst the highest in the state for, amongst the deadliest in the state for DUI. So some sobering, no pun intended, stats there. So Central Avenue, a couple of folks wondered why we were talking about it or including it in this zoning amendment, and it's right in the middle of the area that we're talking about. It bisects it, so that is why. When it comes to the actual project area, or excuse me, zoning amendment area, because projects are yet to come, we're just talking about the zoning piece of it, and the infrastructure piece. There were over 25 pedestrian collisions on Central Avenue in that stretch within the last 10 years. And 2 of those involved serious injuries at Hiller, so in Central, so very serious. And then a little further out, folks might remember less than 10 years ago a bicycle fatality on Central Avenue. So these are real issues. And I want to say that when it comes to traffic calming, it's not just about the people utilizing the bike lane. It's about, that's from the traffic information management system maintained by CHP. It's not just about people using the bike lane, it's about people crossing, and that crossing distance and the crossing behavior of all modes of users. So when we've looked at other projects that involve changes to the configuration of roadways, a lot of times what's front and center, an example was given earlier about H&I and Eureka, going from 3, in this case, to 2 lanes, and a large part of that was to reduce the crossing distance for the seniors and the high school and middle school students that I saw literally running across the street or waiting for a break in the traffic that never came when using a mobility device. So I take it really to heart that these projects are not just about the users of of Central Avenue in this case, but also those who are crossing. I've also worked on a lot of Safe Routes to Schools projects in McKinleyville, so I appreciate people bringing those up. And, you know, in the time that I've worked on those projects prior to being on this board, you know, I got to see that the evaluation of roads changed during that period of time from analyzing what used to be called level of service and has other terms, but is essentially about how many vehicles you can move through a space, to reducing vehicle miles traveled, so the exact opposite goal, and evaluating the safety of all users of the roadway. And I will just say, with what has been brought up about the youth getting to and from the school that's within this zoning amendment area, that is very top of mind for me. So we're planning for a space that is going to have a lot of youth and a lot of seniors, and they are not all going to be in vehicles. So I'm pleased to see the process that's been undertaken. I support it fully. I'm here and ready to move forward after hearing about the abundant community input. And I also want to just add that I have heard all the input. There's been a lot of it, and just because those of us in this position, if we don't agree with some of the input, it doesn't mean that it wasn't heard or there wasn't a robust public process. As far as I'm concerned, that hopefully is understood to everyone in this room, but I still felt that I should say it. I did hear the comment from the community member who wanted to talk about the open space provisions, and I imagine that there was a lot of discussion that went into that, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about it. I also understand that there are multiple property owners likely to make significant investments here, and this may have been a compromise to try to find a way where, we can move forward with a zoning amendment, but those exact elements may still be in the design process down the line. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about that half plus acre of open space.
Through Chair.
Go ahead.
So this was a point of vigorous discussion, and the original idea was kind of using the Arcata Square as an example of size, and that is approximately an acre. And so some people liked that size. Other people wanted to leave the opportunity for either that size or to do something else where there's a lot more smaller open space areas spread out through the area. And it's not just the Ann Pearson property. Obviously, Life Plan Humboldt has an obligation. The Life Plan Humboldt property has an obligation in that, as well as the Pickett Road properties. So they can either do it on their own, all of them, or they can consolidate it at one location. That would be negotiated between the property owners in terms of how they want that to occur. So it really comes to, and I think part of the problem is no one property is big enough that the minimum requirement would be an acre on that property. So if you said it's got to be an acre, you're basically saying that one property is going to have an acre of open space dedicated to it. And I think that may have been the primary thinking there.
Thank you, that's helpful. Yeah, I understand that there's constraints with the property owners and what they intend to do, right? So, yeah, I appreciate that. And so that preservation of a minimum of a half acre is something that is prescriptive here?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I wanted to make just one more comment. I appreciate the offer about the temporary reductions in lanes, but I will just say, I've seen those be not analogous to the final design of changing the roadway. And people do behave differently when they see temporary structures than when roadways have permanent changes. So I don't think they lack value, but I don't think they're also a perfect analog for an engineered and built change to a roadway. So.
Great. As Vice Chair, I'm going to take over for a minute because the Chair had to step out for just a second. Do we have any questions, comments from Supervisor Bohn?
Well, because of all the input, I don't know if it's kind of funny because it was overwhelming at one time the other way. Now it's 50-50. So I think it's more than that for the residents. Like somebody said, 1% is weighed in. And then I've heard degraded wetlands, and I didn't know. I mean, we have a project on Central Avenue that's been 10 years in the making for a wetlands that was supposedly filled that was degraded, and we've been dragging that on for hundreds of thousands of dollars, much to the the property owners despair, and willing to cooperate. So I worry about this because now it's just degraded wetlands. We'll just move it, and I have a basic understanding of that when I first started Redwood Fields 35 years ago in the first location because it had wetlands, and Army Corps of Engineers was going to let me move a creek. Yes, we could do that back then. But with that being said, Life Plan sounds great, and I think it is great, and I appreciate everybody that's put their time in, and it looks like a great project for a lot of people that there's benefits, both to the people that live there and things like that, and I appreciate Ann Pearson doing that. I remember, and I thank her for kicking the ball fields out because then we got Hiller Park, which was the driving force with nowhere to play for the kids to play for Little League, and that's been 25 years ago. So, 20 years ago. So, Kenny's nodding his head, and he fully remembers that. And now our grandkids are playing, and it's been a great thing. So, but we're planning to do this stuff, and we're so far ahead of the game here. We have a conceptual plan that's probably going to get approved today, and I don't know how to say this nicely. I really have a hard time with the road diet, but I don't want to vote against it because that usually means I trigger votes for it. So with that, look at the old movie. But with that being said, it's a $20 million project or more. It's going to be a total mess. A lot of it is driven, again, you know, by outside sources. And I'm hearing from so many people, what I would have loved, and I'm not going to be age discriminatory, but I would love to see somebody under 50 years old speak today. I don't know where Randy's even over that, I think. But I mean, in all honesty, we need to get the young involved. Talking to the young in the process of, you know, much like at a homecoming game and everything else, they don't like the idea either. And I think we should see where Life Plan goes before we start tearing up the road diet, because we have heard what happens when it goes down to 2 lanes. And I'm pretty sure there was a pretty good road study when we put the green bike lanes in and everything else. There was a pretty good study back then that to ease some of the congestion. I know you want to force us out of cars. I know that's the whole idea. That's HIC, all of that stuff and everything else. I've tried. I can't do the bus. I can't. I don't have enough time in the day. I got a 12-hour day already. So, and I served on HTA, and I think it's a great tool for a lot of people. So, I support the Life Plan. I just think the road diet's pushing it, and I think that's what they're going to using as a tool. And overwhelming, the people of the regular residents of McKinleyville do not want all those people on their arterial streets. And prime example is, you know, I fought 5 years ago for a street light at Oak and F. Well, we've added 2 more stoplights on Broadway. Try to get onto F Street from Oak or any of those side streets between 7:30 and 9:30, but unless we got matching funds, we weren't going to do it. Now the price is going to be so expensive. But they're still having accidents there, and they don't call the police. They got a fender bender, so why we call it, it doesn't matter. But there's been some serious accidents. Now, I heard one statistic that Central Avenue after the change was the 5th safest. You know, and then, you know, the fatality, I think the one fatality was brought up was an extremely drunk driver, I believe, who's still in jail. So it's like all the accidents on Broadway. I don't know. I checked. It's been years, but I checked, and there was no chargeable accidents, which means people were crossing every day. I drive Broadway, too, a couple times a day. They're crossing in the middle of the road, you know, and I guess you don't see it if you don't drive it, but there are so many shopping carts that get hit and everything else that get written up as an accident, and we've put in 2 crosswalks there, and I guess there's another one planned, but I've had people crossing at the Verizon store less than 100 yards away from the crosswalk at the theater on the turn. So I can't support the road diet because I just think it's the cart's so far in the horse. And you can, you know, I've read excerpts of the book that Mike was talking about, and he's written 2 other books, and he's going to a great audience, making some money, and he's blaming it on planning and engineering from 80 years ago. But what's it going to look like in 2030? We're guessing, and we've seen some of the guesses happen here in Eureka, and they're not working. Or it doesn't seem to be working. I'm sure if you talk to some people, it's the greatest thing since, but it's not working. I hear everybody saying, I don't see anybody there, but I've seen trying to turn, trying to get on from Wabash. It's a cluster. So, I mean, that's where I stand. I know I can count to 3 in my head, so I'm not too worried about it, but that's where I'm going to stand.
Can you clarify your standing? You like the plan, but you don't like the road diet?
I think if Life Plan comes, I think it's a great idea. I just like how things, when everybody likes them, how they, wetlands, everything else, say, we can move it, we can do that. But if the problem is it's used as a tool or a weapon against a lot of projects too, because there's a lot of those projects that are willing to move wetlands and everything else, and oh my God, we can't do that. So I am opposed to the road diet just because I have a lot more faith in the people of McKinleyville that have been there 40, 50 years that are talking about it, and the businesses. I'll tell you what, there's a couple people up here that got up and spoke that if that plan happens, they're probably going to build it. But they had to let it know that they didn't basically approve it. The life plan part, I think housing for seniors, great. Thank you guys for adding some affordable or low-income housing. That was nice of you, because that's what everybody has to do in the county. So hope that clarifies it clear.
Okay. Do you want to? Okay, sure. I probably will have more to say, but Supervisor Madrone would like to go last. I have a couple questions for Director Ford, and I wanted to make sure that Mr. Mattson over there didn't want to add something. And if you don't, that's okay, but if you do, that's okay too. You're good? Okay. So the part of the, I think that came out of the Planning Commission is that, well, first of all, I want to say that I recognize being slowed down is a pain in the butt. I travel a ton. I live very rural and remote, and I'm always in a hurry, it seems like. And so having the thought of your daily commute be changed and added time, or have to leave earlier in the morning, or have to get your kids up earlier, is quite a thought, right? But I also recognize that, you know, when you go faster, safety becomes not as, you know, that increases safety concerns as well. And so I've heard all you guys say, you know, about the safety and how it would decrease safety by having the roads cut down. I also know that sometimes slowing down increases safety. And so that's, you know, and I don't live in McKinleyville, and it's not my district. I don't go there often, so I haven't been there and seen all that. So I really do want to recognize that. I also, like my colleagues said, really want to thank everybody for their letters and their emails, which were really about 50-50 for and against the road diet. Not too many against the plan, the McKinleyville Center plan, but the road diet itself was the biggest concern. So with that being said, my questions to Director Ford are, so out of the Planning Commission, it says that, you know, they encouraged for a traffic study. And I have a bunch of questions, so we'll just kind of go down the line. What different, if we do a traffic study, what is different that we would do in the future than what we haven't already done?
I think it would take a look at a broader area and look at where traffic is actually going to and coming from. I think that there's a lot of traffic on on Central Avenue that doesn't necessarily go through the town center. Not everybody drives the whole length of Central Avenue. So really coming to understand where the heaviest traffic is, and understanding what the needs of the community are. I think the Planning Commission not only was looking at this as an opportunity to do a deeper dive on the road diet, but really look at transportation as a whole in McKinleyville. And so that would include not only the road diet, but it would also include how do we affect better bicycle connections. I mean, we heard the testimony from somebody who lives in an area, Alpha Azalea, I believe it was, that it's hard to get to the town center from there on the roads that exist because there's really not a good place to ride. And so beginning to really examine all of those things for the community.
Thank you for that. And then in the study that's currently been done, I think there's 3 or 4 exits off the freeway that come into McKinleyville. I know for 3 for sure. Is there 5?
Well, yeah, if you go all the way up to the other end of Central.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm just curious, in that traffic study, and I don't know how you would know, but of the users that use Central, it's Central, right? Central Avenue. Is there an alternative route for them that they could utilize those other 5 exits to access their homes.
So the first off ramp is Central, and anybody that's going to go east onto Sutter is going to get off there.
Okay.
For sure. Probably anybody going to Hartwood is going to get off there.
Okay.
Realistically, if you're going up to the McKinleyville Shopping Center to Safeway, you're getting off there, or even Eureka Natural Foods, and that does get into the town center area.
Okay.
For people that live north, if you're doing that and get off on School Road, it's going to take you longer.
Okay.
It's more time. If you go up to Murray Road, then you're backtracking. But if you live on the north end of town, or if you live on the north end of town, then somewhere in the middle, it makes sense to go up to Murray and come back. I used to live on McKinleyville Avenue. That's probably why I keep saying McKinleyville Avenue. But oftentimes I would not drive down to Washington and go to school. I'd go up to Murray and get on the freeway, drive up to Murray to McKinleyville and drive south.
Okay.
So there's a line in there sometimes, and sometimes it's just time of day. It just is easier.
Okay. So if the road diet isn't approved, what does that do to the Life Humboldt plan and their property?
Doesn't affect Lifetime Humboldt.
It doesn't affect. And so the comments that it's something they want is more for the walkability, rideability, or slower process through?
I don't think Life Plan is the primary advocate or driver for the road diet.
Okay.
That came out of the community plan.
Okay.
Where there are policies asking for Central Avenue to be evaluated and how to make connections from the west to the east and to address bicycle safety and to slow traffic down. It's my understanding that was a discussion as part of the community plan, and I don't want to be wrong here or say anything inappropriate, but maybe at that time it got punted. And the policies were put into the plan to re-examine it, and so here we are again. And we're re-examining it again, and it's my understanding providing the same recommendations.
So if this board approves the McKinleyville Town Center and we opt to do a traffic study for the road diet process, what does that look like? Does it come back to the board before it would be reapproved? Would it go back to commission? What would it look like in the long run?
It depends on how you want to structure the approval of it. So if you were looking to have the study done before you began to do any improvements, you would have the study completed, and that should go through the MCMAC, that should go through MCSD, because the community should have a voice in that. Then it would come back to the board, and then the board would choose whether or not that's something to move forward with. And then funding would be sought to go out and do whatever the results of the study are. And it could be as simple as just Central, but it could be more comprehensive and looking at other areas in the McKinleyville network of connection, which would include pedestrian, bicycle, mass public transit, and automobile traffic.
Who pays for a traffic study?
In this case, that would either be done through the county or through grant funding. And I will tell you, the most expensive part of the EIR that was done was the level of service analysis that was done for this.
Okay, those are my questions for right now. I'll wait until there's more comment before I add more. Thank you. Supervisor Madrone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I've got a few thank yous I want to offer up first, and the biggest one is really thank you to the community for those that showed up today, those that submitted comments, not only in the last week or so, but through the whole process. And I will tell you, all the phone calls and all the other input I get at the grocery store and everywhere else, it has been 50-50 split for me. But I think we all have our different audiences, and people, you know, on this board may have had different experiences with that. Maybe they heard mostly opposition, maybe they heard mostly support. I will tell you that from my perspective, it's been about 50-50. But yes. And I will say that every person that has commented and hasn't even commented, all those opinions are valid. Every one of them is valid, no matter what they felt about it. And I know this board takes all of those comments seriously, as do I. But I really want to thank Ann Person. When I first joined this board in 2019, I started attending the MICMAC meetings, and Ann was there, and she continuously brought forth this vision of wanting to be able to use her undeveloped properties to create a town center and create a character for the town, which she and many people felt that while many people think Central Avenue is wonderful, it was kind of like a Main Street USA and not really a town center or a town character. And so for Ann, she has maintained that vision from the start, and I cannot thank her enough. In fact, the whole Pearson family has been very benevolent to McKinleyville, Pearson Park, right? Azalea Hall, all these things. And I thank the Pearson family and Ann in particular for that. I also want to thank Ann Lindsay and her board and all of her volunteers for bringing forth this vision of Life Plan Humboldt and the Humboldt Commons, which is going to be an incredible development. But I also want to thank this board because without this board's support for planning staff to engage for 6 years, when we have many other competing priorities, other community plans that need updating, zoning changes that need to be applied from the general plan amendment or adoption, and many other things. So thank you as board members for your support of that staff time, primarily by Director Ford, who lives in McKinleyville, and we're lucky for that. But also funding to complete the EIR. Without your support for that, we wouldn't be here today. So thank you for that. I want to thank the MAC for its 6 years of dedication and listening and learning. And I know some people have said, yeah, they didn't listen. I think really what that is that if you make comments and your comments aren't necessarily what the end result is, it feels like you haven't been heard. And I can appreciate that. But I will tell you that I think the MICMAC did a magnificent job. And the meetings over the last 6 years have had anywhere from 10 to 30 people or more. I think we had a couple at 40 or 50 people involved in this process. Is that a large cross-section of the community? No. But in terms of public participation, it's pretty significant. Rarely do you get a lot of people showing up for a lot of these things until the very end, and then you get all kinds of comments. So I want to thank the MICMAC, but also the MCSD. They have 2 representatives on the MICMAC, and they too have often engaged in discussions, as was seen here today with one of the directors here, as well as the general manager, sharing with us their concerns about how their infrastructure might be impacted by the potential traffic calming proposals and stuff. And so I want to thank the MCSD, but I want to make it clear that I think the MICMAC has done a fantastic job, and I personally believe that they fairly represent the community. It's not easy to really try and make those appointments here at the board or on my part to try and make sure of that, but I will tell you that I had a number of very liberal people that wanted to get on MICMAC, and instead I kept people on there that were not so liberal, that represented the other side of the equation, and I think we're better for it, for having that diverse group on there. I also want to thank those who took the time to actually move beyond their reactionary thoughts about traffic calming and stuff, and actually went online, did some research about traffic calming and about smart towns and things that are well documented about how the impacts of slowing down traffic, what the impacts, positive and negative, can be of that. So I want to credit people for that. It's a lot easier just to make a quick reactionary comment, but to then follow that up and actually do the research. Be careful with that, because it might change your mind, when you do that. But I want to thank those. It really took that time to dig in. And if you haven't had that time to do that yet, please do that, because there's a lot of information available out there that will actually help help you, be informed about how these things really work or don't work, et cetera. Again, every viewpoint is valid, and I'm not trying to discount that at all. 6 years, the town center ordinance was actually put into the McKinleyville Community Plan in 2000 as one of the things that the Board of Supervisors was ultimately supposed to follow through with and make happen. But it didn't happen for 19 years. It didn't really get started till 2019. And why that is, we can all conjecture why it never got started or didn't happen. Some commenters today talked about how we didn't want a town center. So I'm sure some of that had something to do with that. But at any rate, things changed. Leadership changed here at the board and at the MCMAC. And ultimately, we got started on really, figuring out how to move that forward and get it done. And I want to say that a lot of that had to do with this group called the McKinleyville Organizing Committee, of which several members are here today. And they all worked really hard to keep this vision alive for a town center. They never failed on continuing to bring that forward. And I want to especially recognize Bonnie McGregor, who's here today. Because without, yes, we're supposed to not clap. You can do this, I guess. But Bonnie, you and many other members of your group really did keep that vision alive, along with Ann Pearson. So I can't thank you enough. I want to thank you a lot. That's a better way of saying that. And all of the members of that group, because they really did keep it alive, and they were a big element in getting the painted bike lanes along Central and other things like that. And there were many other people. I know Shell and others had a lot to do with trying to make sure that Central could be as safe as it could be, being a four-way thoroughfare and all that stuff. So I appreciate all of that. But here we are, finally, after 19 years, this thing started, and 6 years worth of work has gone into this. And while this board's deliberation is super important, there's no way that 4 hours of deliberation can replace that 6 years worth of effort by the community and the rest of it, although our opinions matter as well. And I appreciate the questions from the board that have already been asked to try and clarify things. Central is not safe. It might be safer for cars with the way it's constrained or developed, but it is not safer for pedestrians. And the stories, I too have seen situations like previous Senator Chesbro, previous board member Wesley Chesbro, talked about how you can be stopped in the right lane, the flashing lights for the crosswalks are going off, children and others start crossing, but the car in the left lane doesn't respect the crosswalk flashing lights. And I've seen this over and over again. I'm sure many of you have, and they just barrel through. And we're talking about lives on the line here, near misses and things like that. I hope we don't wait until somebody gets killed in one of those crosswalks. And so we need to figure something out. And maybe what we've already proposed isn't exactly it. And I'll talk a little more about that. But I do agree that the Planning Commission recommendation for a comprehensive circulation study for the entire community makes a lot of sense. A lot of it's been done, but as Director Ford said, we didn't look outside of the impact area of the town center. We didn't look at McKinleyville being connected to the roundabout on School Road. We didn't look at the potential for off-ramp and on-ramp at, we did look at that one, McKinleyville Avenue. That's the furthest out we looked, I guess, is that roundabout. But we didn't look at the hill of ramps. That really just came up, during this process. And I was very pleased with Caltrans' response to that, as I said earlier, that they thought, wow, that would be a game changer. And I think we could all agree that if there was an on-ramp and off-ramp at Hiller Road from the south end or going south, that would be a game changer, because that connects right to the town center. It's in the middle of town. And while there currently are 5 ways to get into McKinleyville, that's the missing link. That's the one that is perhaps the most important to really change the circulation patterns on Central and on McKinleyville Avenue without flooding the neighborhoods, frankly. So I'm very excited about looking further into that with Caltrans. Additionally, it may not be well known, but this town center ordinance actually calls for a completion of the Midtown Trail. Several people spoke about that as a really great way to offer an alternative route separate from Central to be able to bicycle, to walk. And so it's languished. It ends at Railroad, and then it picks up again down in Hartwood. But to actually complete that through the town center, Life Plan Humboldt is dedicated to completing that piece through their property. And the town center ordinance calls for completion through the whole property there behind Safeway. So that is going to be another game changer to have that completed trail. You know, the rest of Humboldt County has often been a little jealous of McKinleyville with its Hammond Trail. And once we complete the Midtown Trail, that's just a whole nother piece of that wonderful aspect. There's also proposals for roundabouts, and as we speak, thanks to Tom Mattson and Public Works, and volunteers in the community, including MCMAC, we are trying out some what's called quick build ideas on Hiller Road as we speak, including testing out a roundabout with temporary measures at Hiller Road and McKinleyville Avenue. So that's really exciting because those two could be a game changer. Open space was mentioned, and I too, like Bonnie and many others, feel like it would be nice to have more open space. And I can tell you in my discussions with Ann Pearson, she feels that way too. She feels very much like right down through the middle of the development, there's some little wetland areas, but they could be developed into duck ponds. It won't satisfy wetland mitigation per se, but it could very well be amenities to a hotel, a restaurant that overlook these duck ponds down the middle. So I think there's ample opportunity, and I have a lot of faith in what she did in setting up this nonprofit foundation to carry forth her vision, and I have a lot of faith that they will look for opportunities to create even more open space. So I appreciate the comments that people have made on that. It is well documented that density is one of those things that helps create a vibrant town center. People have often said in this process, why would we be adding more retail when there's all these empty retail spaces in McKinleyville already? Well, I'm here to tell you that there's some really big picture stuff going on in McKinleyville that I know you know about, or maybe you don't, but the idea of improving the Vista Point facility out on 101 so we can actually pull visitors off the highway. And right now, how many hotels, motels are there in McKinleyville?
No.
One. Holiday Inn, one. And, you know, Steve Mosier, who has gotten the entire airport business park permitted, has said often to me that once that Vista Point facility is able to get people off the highway, even if you're going north or south, that will cause his business park to fill out in a very short period of time. Humboldt County's airport is growing, and we have actually property at the airport that could be developed into hotels, motels, and other types of things. And then you add the town center and its potential for that. And I think what that's going to do is bring in a lot of income from outside the community that is going to, along with the densification with Life Plan Humboldt and other housing in the town center, is going to lead to a vibrant town center retail operation. And we're going to see stores filling up. We're going to see mom and pops actually be able to succeed beyond 1 or 2 years. And so I look forward to that day for McKinleyville. It's funny, at our meetings at MCMAC, it was fairly evenly split on this density issue between population, age. You know, what were the ages of the people? And the young people in particular were like, I love density. It's vibrant. It's incredible. There's all this stuff going on. Us older folks are like, oh, let's just keep it, you know, keep it down. So that also is very split, and in particular, I think, by age group, which is interesting. But I do believe that this process of the town center ordinance will lead to increased vibrant retail environment. And we also know, due to a traffic study that was done, thanks to the efforts of the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities, we got a grant to actually study transit in McKinleyville. Because right now we just kind of have a through transit. We don't really have an inner city transit, and that is because we're not dense enough. We're sprawled out all over. So it's well documented that by densifying, that will lead to inner city transit in McKinleyville, which I and many others look forward to, which then make the commuting transit quicker for everybody that really just wants to get between one place to the next instead of wander around town. So that's a very, very exciting thing. It's also been mentioned that during the construction on Central Avenue, people saw this incredible traffic congestion and delays. I mean, people were waiting at least another couple of minutes, right, to get to their homes. And it's interesting because it's well documented also that that's not a fair test of what it would look like with permanent improvements. You know, when you make permanent changes, we adjust our behaviors. Like was said before, if you're in the north end of town, just get off at Murray Road or Airport Road or whatever. And if Hiller ramps were there, not if, when they're there, that's going to create another option for people to just get directly to their homes, et cetera. So that's some of the comments that I have at this time. I'm sure the rest of the board will also have more comments, but I want to go ahead and make a motion at this time. It's not to shut down discussion, because often we'll make a motion, and if there's a second, then there's more discussion still that can occur. But I wanted to go ahead and just go ahead and make a motion at this time to basically approve staff recommendation, which is to adopt the resolution to certify the environmental impact report, including adoption of the statement of overriding consideration for the McKinleyville Town Center zoning amendment ordinance, and to adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and to adopt the resolution to make all required findings for approval of the zoning ordinance amendment to change the zoning in the town center to mixed use with a Q-zone overlay to establish development criteria, and adopt the ordinance to change the zoning in the town center to mixed use with a Q-zone overlay to establish development criteria, and also very important to add to this the Planning Commission recommendation for a comprehensive circulation plan town-wide across the whole town, and coordination in that development process and review with the MCMAC and the McKinleyville Community Service District and the community. And in a way that does what a lot of people ask for, which is bifurcate this. So that was the end of my motion. And I just want to point out that this, whatever we do with Central Avenue, whatever that looks like in terms of traffic calming details, this will not happen overnight. It took us 19 years to get to the town center ordinance. But if we don't include it as part of the ordinance, which it is right now, it could waylay it for years and years and years. So I want it to be included as my motion suggested, but I want to be sure that we are, as a community, taking the time to look at that full circulation plan and coordinate that with MCMAC and the CSD and the community. So whatever we ultimately come up with, which will be several years down the line, because it takes time to do those things, it's going to take funding, as was mentioned, and we're not going to use Measure O for this. Measure O, as people said, take care of the roads we already have. That's what Measure O is supposed to do. So we will work with HCOG, we will look for grants, and that will take some time. But we'll get it right. We'll figure out how to make it safe and convenient for cars and pedestrians and bicyclists, and I hope that we all stay committed to that long-range opportunity. So that's my motion.
Second, if I could speak to my motion, or my second, that'd be great.
Go ahead.
Thanks. First of all, I wanted to confirm with everybody that we received a lot of comments, and we read a lot of emails, received some phone calls, and all the things from all of us who consider ourselves regular, and then all of us who consider ourselves irregular, which I suppose is everybody in Humboldt County. And I will say that there was just a lot of really, what was reflected in the comments was the amount of time that people have spent really gnawing on this, and I don't mean just the road issue, but really all the other parts as well. There was an interesting comment that, and a criticism, John, of the ministerial nature of the, and I want to, of the process for, kind of development or redevelopment of some of these properties in this form-based code. And could you just kind of, there's a positive and a negative to this in some people's minds, which is, one is, we especially in California and many other places, have been criticized that we slow down development processes to such a degree, especially around housing, that the processes themselves don't allow for the development of new housing. And one of the solutions to that is this form-based process. And could you just summarize that so we can understand that a little bit?
Right, and you are exactly right. One of the things that's even part of our general plan that we're required to do right now is remove encumbrances to entitlements for housing. Because there's a lot of times where housing development requires various discretionary permits. And so the McKinleyville Community Plan even identified that there should be a design review committee established to create guidelines for development within the town center. So the committee was to create the guidelines. But then the plan says something that's a little different. It says, and no special permit will be required. And normally when you have design review, it includes the requirement for a special permit. And so interpreting that, what that means is that we don't want to have a discretionary process for the design review. So what will happen when development comes in is that the style of development, the way it's laid out, will be evaluated in terms of what the town center ordinance is attempting to accomplish at the staff level. It'll be what happens in the planning and building department is when a building permit application comes in, that gets referred to a bunch of different places, and one of those is just across the aisle over to the planning division. And so then the planner that's responsible for it will be looking at the town center ordinance, will be looking at the development to ensure that all those criteria that are in this ordinance are being complied with, and that the way it's laid out are being complied with. And that includes the site plan, that includes something that you've brought up, whether or not it's really a pedestrian-oriented development or whether or not they're putting a bunch of parking in, and the ordinance is very clear about that. You're not going to have on-site parking except for multiple family residential, and even then it's limited. They can have corporate parking, group parking within a common lot. So that will all get reviewed before the building permit is issued. I do want to point out for comparison, that's not really a change from the existing condition.
Okay. So this isn't a streamlining element of this. I guess the concern was that the community would have less of an input. And in some ways, that's part of what happens when we're trying to streamline things. That's just how it goes. And so I'm just wondering, are we going to streamline these processes or not?
Well, it's my intent to see development move through any process as fast as possible.
Right.
And we're working on that.
Okay. Speaking to my second, I agree with the findings. I think they were well written. I think they speak to what we're trying to do in Humboldt County. I want to speak to every single comment, whether you were for or against any particular part of this project, was made because everybody wants a better, healthier, happier community to live in. I think we just sometimes disagree on the strategy to get there, but in general, everybody really wants the same thing as the outcome. I personally, I'm not as enthused as Supervisor Madrone about doing another traffic study. If that's what gets this over the hump, then I think that's the way we go. I think the traffic study that was done is pretty comprehensive. I think that it looks at almost everything you would want to in this, and again, more importantly, I want to encourage again more development and redevelopment in the town center as quickly as possible, and I don't want a traffic study, an additional traffic study that will likely come up with the same results to slow that down, I guess is my concern. Those are my concerns. Even with all that, I'm still supportive of the motion as it stands. Thank you.
Supervisor Arroyo?
I concur. I was ready to approve staff recommendation, and I don't want to slow down the process. It's been 6+ years, much longer than that this has been envisioned, and sounds like far before that, many of the folks who are here in the room today or have reached out to us were opposed to the design changes to Central that we now have. So I think we've seen enough time go by. We've learned lessons about traffic design and road safety that we didn't know before. And I also, as the resident millennial on this board, you said you wanted to hear from young folks, and I have been in communication with a lot of people my age and much younger than me about this, some of whom have participated in the public process and some of whom have not, who are really excited about both the density and the multimodal improvements that are proposed. So I heard both that you have to have lived in the community for 40 or 50 years, or that you have to be under a certain age. And I think we've heard from both folks in both those categories. So I appreciate, again, all the community input, but I'm ready to hopefully move forward and make this process move along.
Supervisor Bohn?
I've made myself clear, and I can count to 3, maybe 4, I don't know.
Supervisor Madrone?
Thank you, Chair. Just to be clear, John, this condition that I've added to the staff recommendation for the comprehensive circulation plan and coordination on designs with the MCSD and the MCMAC, that doesn't stop the town center ordinance from being implemented. Is that correct? It's a separate issue. Because my intention was that while it's included in the motion, and I think we may have to take some time to get that final item done, it is not my intention in the motion that I made to cause it to delay the implementation of the town center ordinance. Can you clarify that for me?
I did understand that, but perhaps it would help to clarify that prior to implementation of the Central Avenue improvements, that this study would be completed and that it would be reviewed by the MCMAC and MCSD.
I would add that to my motion, that final item, that prior to the implementation of Central Avenue changes, these things would be done. And that then clarifies that the rest of it can move forward.
Correct.
If approved by this board.
Correct.
All right, I would make that change.
The seconder is okay with that, but still,
I hear you.
I would live without it entirely myself, but thanks.
So I just want to re-question that a traffic study would be different, or do you, I as well don't want to do it just because, that is what people say needs to happen. If there is one out there that is, comprehensive and sufficient.
I think that we will have a much better sense of what's going to happen with Hiller before we get to this study. And so if Hiller's going to happen, then the traffic analysis would greatly benefit everybody in understanding the benefit that Hiller provides. I think it would be beneficial to understand how Central Avenue as a whole functions, because there are areas of that road that are far busier than other areas. And so, to understand where the most significant average daily trips are located versus where the number of trips that are actually making it all the way through the town center. It'd probably be helpful to know that. I think intuitively, probably people feel like they understand that. But to have it would really be about putting that into a study, collecting the amount of traffic on the road, and just really being able to quantify that.
Okay, that makes sense to me if it's different. I do want to say that, Supervisor Bohn, do you want to say something else? Okay. It's hard being the chair. whether 3 or 4 of us or all of us end up voting for this, I think that anything that anyone can do in today's economic world to try to improve your community. I'm from Southern, Humboldt. I live in Southern Humboldt, and I was born and raised there. And, my district is the 2nd district, and I've seen so many changes in Southern Humboldt and empty storefronts right now. I've been to McKinleyville. My grandson plays baseball, and so I've gone up there, for sporting events and have seen a lot of change. I don't go for 5 years at a time sometimes. And so I was kind of shocked the last time I was up there, and to see the amount of empty spaces up there, and to see the, I think it's a U-Haul where Kmart used to be, in those areas that aren't really conducive of bringing people to your town to shop and to spend money. And I know that it's painful. I can feel it from you folks that it's painful to have change and to think about reducing your commute and, time, and this is going to be a pain in the butt, and I'm going to sit here in traffic and all the things. But in my own district, I would really relish at something, and we struggle to find it, and we've been searching for it in that area to really bring people into our town. If you go into Garberville, it's 2 lanes of very wide streets, and they're not, they're not different. They don't have a lines down them, and so you get 2 people trying to go down 1 lane, and it's a mess. But I just want to say that being a brick and mortar right now is super hard, and with Amazon and all those things that deliver to people's storefronts, it's not about the Kmart in the world or the Target in the world or those bigger box stores. It's really about the, the feel and the dining and the small mom and pops and the experience that really bring people in and walk from store to store and have that really good feel. And like I said, I want to get from point to A to B very quickly. I hate traveling. I'm tired of driving, all the things. And so I do feel that. But if you can add to your community and really entice people into your community to spend time there and spend money there, it's such a plus. And it makes, I've went to different areas lately and saw where they've blocked off whole streets and have this like shopping community there, shopping center, and they don't allow cars at all anymore. And I thought to myself, this is great. I can walk from block A to block 10, and it's a big old experience. And it was packed and full of people and spending money. And I bring it from a thought of Southern Humboldt that's failing economically, and that businesses are closing. There are 2 more businesses closing, one at the end of this month, one at the end of December, which is really sad for me. And I've been there my whole entire life and seen a lot of changes and never seen it as bad as it is right now. So if you think your community is not going to be affected, it's trickling down pretty quickly these days. So I can't answer your question, I'm sorry, sir, but I just want to say that I've heard you all, and I do take it very seriously, and I hope that this transition will be a good one for McKinleyville. And just want you to know that I don't live in your community, but I really relish in what can make Humboldt better and more economically viable. And that's about all I have. Supervisor Madrone is ready to vote. Okay, Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank you. Just a Hail Mary at the end here. I heard a possible if-then statement in what you were saying, Director Ford, about the Caltrans and Hiller Road connection to the freeway. I am curious if I understood correctly. Were you saying that if they are proceeding in the near future with that component, then a traffic study, a new traffic study would be a helpful tool?
Yes.
But if they are not, then the traffic study, it sounds like, would be similar to the existing conditions that we already have a traffic study for.
Correct.
So I'm wondering if you, great, it looks like Steve's ready to follow my train of thinking, perhaps.
Through the chair, clarification.
Go ahead.
So in our meeting with Caltrans, they mentioned not only that they were doing the earthquake retrofitting of Hiller Road overpass, but that they were embarking on a major Highway 101 study in that area from Arcata into North County, and that they were now going to include the idea of these ramps at Hiller Road into that study. That's the first step. And based on the outcome of all that, which they seem to be very supportive of, several staff said, wow, why hadn't we thought about this before, frankly? So it is in process as we speak and moving forward with consideration. That's a multifaceted effort that's going to have to happen. It won't happen in 2 years. It will be something that will take probably 10 to 15 years to get through the STIP process and a bunch of other elements to that, but it is included in the current planning that they are embarking on as we speak.
Through the chair, if I may, this brings up an interesting question, because you just putting out there 10 to 15 years. Does that mean that this study doesn't happen for 10 to 15 years? And if within the next decade there's money that comes down, say an earmark or something, to deal with, to move Central forward, are we then waiting for a traffic study that won't happen for 10 to 15 years?
I'm going to interrupt because I skipped over Supervisor Madrone. Okay. I'm sorry. I said we'd go to him after me, and then I just completely forgot. So we'll finish this, and then we'll go right to Supervisor Bohn.
I'm just saying that doing any kind of highway project like that takes 10 to 15 years. That's the timeline for that. But clearly, because Caltrans is now embracing it in their current planning effort, it would make a lot of sense to take a additional look at how those ramps might affect circulation in McKinleyville. And I would assume that that could be done a lot sooner than 10 to 15 years, and it will be, as Tom Mattson said, Director of Public Works, it would be an HCOG funded effort more than likely to try and move that initial planning study to completion. We've done a lot of work, as Tom said, through the efforts that have already occurred. It's just, this never came up during that study.
Through the chair, I have a question for the director, which is, so could that study be started with an alternate reality, I guess you'd say, where there is that that infrastructure has been put in? Because I don't want us to delay and hold off for 10 or 15 years moving forward with the decision, waiting for some other agency to do this.
Yeah, I wish I'd had that information before. I wasn't in those meetings, so I apologize for that.
I'm going to I'm going to promote you to supervisor, but maybe Director Mattson has something to say behind you. He stood up, but go ahead.
Let me say this.
Go ahead.
Is that it would be beneficial to do the study before that and use that as incentive for Caltrans to really take it more seriously. So if we were to finish the study within a couple of years and then pass that off to Caltrans, showing the difference it would make within McKinleyville and the importance of that interchange, that may give it some priority.
Okay.
Through the chair,
Supervisor Mattson said he concurs.
And I appreciate that, and I'm glad we're having that clarification. But again, then that study would probably have at minimum two alternatives. It would have one where it gets built and one where it doesn't get built. Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Arroyo.
Okay.
No, Supervisor Madrone. Bohn. Sorry, Rex, go ahead.
See what I mean? It's getting too obvious. Director Ford, you mentioned that we're going to change people's driving habits if you go down to one lane. I think it was mentioned. So if you live on the north end of McKinleyville, you're going to take the airport exit and then go to that. Doesn't that shoot the hell out of the theory of making a vibrant shopping center when you're going to put the people all the way at the other end so they don't go downtown and say, let's go to Winco or Safeway and Arcata or Eureka and get my shopping where I do business, because I'm not going to be driving by those and I don't want the delay. And I keep hearing this vibrancy, and I hear this vibrancy economic. Until the people stop buying stuff they can buy here. I understand you can't get everything else, but shop local. I mean, I tell you, I do 40 auctions plus auctions a year, and I have never seen Jeff Bezos donate a damn thing. But in turn, we'll order offline, but we'll ask them to donate to our church fundraiser, which I just did this weekend, and everything else. So I'm just saying, it seems to me if we're directing traffic around, we're going to make it a burden. And 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I mean, you know, we make fun of that, but it's, you know, it's not just 2 or 3 minutes. So, but if we're trying to change people's habits to miss your shopping center, what are the odds of them shopping in the shopping center if they're not going to the shopping center?
So experience and studies show it's greater. And it's about people who are commuting, allowing them to commute, people who are going to a destination, which is identifying a sense of place and identifying a place that attracts people to it to come and stay and not just speed through. And a lot of times right now, it's a place that people just speed through. If the traffic there were to be equated with economic vitality, there wouldn't be the empty storefronts there are.
John, we just heard about Southern Humboldt. We heard about McKinleyville, downtown Eureka, Henderson Center, every place I can go. The Eureka Mall, which used to be, and I haven't been in the mall in over 20 years except for DMV, they've all got empty storefronts. We're at an economic downfall because people are buying online, but now we're using it as a tool. We can fill them back up if we change this, and change this. And number one, it's not how you drive, it's your buying habits. It's the convenience, the I want it tomorrow type thing. And I don't know anywhere, and I mean, case in point, Willits Cloverdale. I mean, we bypassed that. Now, the Willits bypass, I think it was wonderful because I go to Sacramento a lot. I don't know if the McDonald's there likes it that much, or any of the other stores, the Wagon Wheel, any of those places. So I'm just saying economic vitality is a lot more than driving pattern, and that's why I'm, you know, and I understand all the studies and everything else, but I'm kind of looking at reality. All the shopping centers we have around here, our shopping focuses, are empty, and people are going out of business, and we're not seeing, I mean, we're seeing, you know, a Starbucks open up on both ends of town, one closes up in a year. I mean, we got a Wingstop. I mean, you see a lot of that overzealous there and everything else, but the mom and pops, I mean, and I go back, I mean, 60 some odd years ago, I was raised in a corner grocery store, a literal gas, you know, one cash register put 2 sisters through college, and my dad says, we don't make enough to put you through college, be a truck driver. That's what I became. So I'm just saying, I believe in that mom and pop theory and the locally owned and thrive for that day, but I don't know if we can ever get it back.
I understand what you're saying, but it is really how we think about space. And part of the issue is creating a place where people want to go and be. There are places, there are towns. You know, one of the most vivid that comes to my mind was when I was young, the K Street Mall in Sacramento was Skid Row. They closed it. They turned it into a pedestrian promenade. You've been down there recently, and it is a beautiful place right now. I remember being down there, my parents wouldn't let me walk alone. There's other examples where you go to places, small towns, big towns, where they have just slowed the traffic down and reoriented towards creating pedestrian places. Where do people stop? Where do they hang out? They hang out in places where it's conducive for them to just be. That's the vision that's being presented here. I think the other part of the vision is that there's now going to be a live retail service relationship where people don't have to get into their car. The people that live there don't have to drive to go to the restaurants that are there. They don't have to drive to go to the grocery store. They're right there.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. I'm I'm going to allow Supervisor Arroyo a very small comment before we cast our votes.
Well, I'm hoping that we may consider an amendment to this motion, because I would vote for it grudgingly right now, and I would vote for it enthusiastically if it were the recommendation that came from the MCMAC and was supported by, at the time that it came to the Planning Commission, by the CSD and the MCMAC. But then the Planning Commission did add this traffic study. Now we're hearing that maybe there wasn't a full understanding of the traffic study, and that as it stands, it would be a bit of a duplicative effort. And should things change, it might add additional insight. But right now, I don't want us to do the work of a traffic study that's precipitated by a Caltrans change. I would prefer that they fund that work. And I don't really want to bifurcate this project, which is about an entire sense of place and is a cohesive package, if the study that we're going to be requiring to make roadway changes is going to duplicate what we already have. So I hope that that makes sense. I'd like to suggest that we remove that element. And if we can't, then I'm still, ready to move forward. But I think it's going to add unnecessary cost.
As the motion maker, I'm willing to accept that amendment because, and here's the reason why, because the recommendation for the road diet is included in the town center ordinance proposal. And I know there is no way that any changes to Central Avenue are going to occur without doing additional planning and additional detailed preliminary engineering plans and communication with MCSD and MR and the MCMAC and the community. So in a way, that final element I added to staff recommendation is duplicative, as was used here. And so I'm willing to remove that because I know it's going to happen anyway. So it's really not necessary, and if that makes it more palatable for some of this board, I'm fine with that.
I would concur with that. I also would appreciate the reduction in cost to the county in this process.
Kaylee, because we're changing the motion, could we clear off if anybody's voted currently, can we clear that off? Also, I just want to confirm that, so if the MS, or the MS, whatever the abbreviation.
MCSD.
Thank you. If they want a traffic study done through more work, as Supervisor Madrone says, that's already in the project, before the road diet can happen, is that something that would happen if that's what they want?
I don't want to speak for you made me do it, Director Madsen. But I imagine that any future designs for Central or anything that's done would be done through the MCMAC and also through MCSD.
Director Madsen, can you come up, please? So I have two questions. The one is the one I just posed to Director Ford, and then my second question also would be, if you do all these studies and through the process and all the agencies in McKinleyville, and it does you do find out that this really is not something that can happen in McKinleyville by reducing those lanes, that is going to create bigger problems and bigger safety issues, what would happen then?
That would come back, it's not my job to tell the community what they want. It's to tell them the impacts of changes and what that would do. And right now you have a traffic study that does that. It tells, if you do the 3 lanes, these 8 intersections or whatever will have impacts, and here's the solutions. Well, if we add the interchange to that, it's also going to change the impacts to those 8 intersections, and they may not need the improvements or may need different improvements. But then it comes back, it's really a community decision. The way that Public Works has worked with the McKinleyville is anything that's really a project, not just maintenance, we bring before them. and we bring it back and we bring it back and we bring it back until we get consensus, and then we move forward. The question here is, do you want it specifically to come back to the board for approval? Because if you just say, do a traffic study and see what happens, that makes me the final decision maker, not you, not the MMAC. It just means I go meet with them and we go through our process.
So then, any input from the community? I mean, so you would do the studies, you would, at what point would you be able to decide to bring it back to this board?
In the normal process, I would not. I would make that recommendation coming out, but if you want it to come back to this board, then please specifically state that, because this is going to be down the line, and I may not be here for that many more years. And what I tell you today may change, so I would highly recommend that if you want a specific process where it comes back to the board for a decision, that you make that part of the motion, that the Public Works Department work with the MAC and MCSD on a traffic study, and before any changes are made, bring it back to the Board of Supervisors for approval.
Okay, so we're back to that first motion.
And could I clarify something?
Sure,
too?
go ahead.
I think we're talking in two different things here. So the motion that's just been modified takes the study away. Moving forward, it's reliant upon the study that's been done.
Mm-hmm.
So when the design, we're now just talking about design of Central. We're not talking about doing another comprehensive traffic analysis.
Is that how, like, if you and the MCMAC wanted, or whoever the CSD wanted another traffic study, would you be able to order that without this board stating?
We would not want to fund it out of our own funds
Right.
right now. We would want outside funding. But coming back full circle, if we were going to go and actually put out a project to bid, that would come back to the board. If the traffic study said that we should do this, or these are the impacts, and we put a project together for bid, that does come back to the board automatically for your approval.
Okay, so any project that would change that, because I get that. So there would be another opportunity to talk about this without that a new traffic study. It would come back to the board when it goes out to bid, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. Supervisor Wilson.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if this is because we've now bifurcated the Hiller Road interchange, it seems like, which I find it's fine, and I think there's a reasonable understanding that might be something that the county might want to prioritize, although I haven't seen data on that necessarily, because in general we talk about these things in different ways. So what I'm asking is then, could we at this moment ask that Hiller Road interchange be on our list of prioritized projects, at least in the short term, while it gets analyzed in its context with all the other things that we're doing?
I'm going to ask Director Mattson to respond to that.
Okay.
We can certainly add it to our list of priorities. We just missed the HCOG cycle to add it to the regional transportation plan. So that would have to come in the next cycle.
Okay.
But that's really, if this concept is to move forward, that's where we would need to go, is to get it on in the regional transportation plan, so
Right.
that we can qualify for the funding through HCOG and partner with Caltrans.
Okay, and I think that in lieu of holding this up for another traffic study, doing that, because we would be waiting for it anyway, we would have to prioritize it in order to get this traffic study anyhow, so you might as well just do that today, prioritize it separately from this project, so that at least it's on the list, and if it moves forward, we have something to look at. Does that make sense?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So are we ready? Okay, we're going to amend again.
Sorry, Kaylee.
Is that part of this, is that eligible for today? It's outside of the project area and.
It's, to be clear, it's not agendized
It's not on
and
the
it's not
agenda.
included within the project.
Bring it back.
You can provide direction to bring it back for further consideration.
So amended for the third time.
Seconded.
Can you please state your motion for the record?
I'm going to actually have Director Ford read back the motion as he thinks it is. And motion maker and seconder can affirm or not. And we're going to give him a second. And then I'm also, if we approve that motion, John, can you email that to Kaylee, please? Okay.
So the motion, as I understand, it's on your mic. Thanks, Eric. Sorry. Is to adopt the resolution to certify the EIR and adopt the findings of overriding consideration. To adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program. Adopt the resolution to make all required findings for adoption of this amendment to the zoning ordinance. Adopt the ordinance to rezone the town center mixed use, to rezone the town center to mixed use with a Q overlay zone. And to direct that staff bring back a discussion item for board's consideration to prioritize the Hiller interchange with Highway 101.
Yeah, so basically, we're adopting staff recommendations in their entirety with one final caveat, which is to direct staff to come back with a consideration of the Hiller Road off-ramp system. Does that make sense? Okay. Yep.
Seconder agrees.
I want to thank everybody that has had, that came today and took time to be here all day. It's been a long day, and for all your thoughts. And, you know, we hear you guys, and it's your community. And so I hope the best for the outcome.
Supervisor Wilson, I'm waiting for your vote. Thank you. It didn't go through.
You can do a roll call.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Arroyo?
Yes.
Supervisor Madrone?
Yes.
Supervisor Bohn? Chair Bushnell?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1.
Okay, thank you. And we are adjourned.